All right, boys, welcome to GBU. Let me go ahead and hide the intro here. And hopefully you can't see anything you shouldn't be supposed to. Welcome to GBU Season 1 draft stream hosted by myself and OG Albina. We have the chat on screen. We have notifications on screen as well. We have commands in the chat. If you guys want to see your favorite coaches, do go ahead and do something like !Night Shaders, and you go ahead and get the link for whoever is in the chat, as long as Nightbot's working. I really hope Nightbot is working. There it goes. You're already here, Goofy, trying to get me. So we're going to go ahead and just jump in here. We are going to spend 2 minutes per pick in round 1. We're not going to waste time. We're going to try to keep this within 3 hours since we're already doing this kind of late. Since somebody had to work today, I'm not going to name any names, threw our whole plan off. It's okay. But we are going to go ahead and jump in here. Do you have anything you want to say before we jump in on?
Nope, I'm excited to go. I'm very sleepy, but this will hopefully wake me up. We got some really cool teams this season, so I'm excited to show them all to you guys.
We do. Oh, and be sure to join the GBU Discord server down in the description below, as well as check out all of our amazing coaches if you don't want to do the commands. I don't know what just happened with the chat on screen. It lagged behind a lot. As soon as we start this, though, it is going to be 2 minutes per, and we cannot pause it. So we are going to go ahead and jump in to round 1, in which Killa Boom had the very first pick, ! Gold Dangos. Let me go ahead and throw that out there, and we'll go ahead and just jump in here. He took Darkrai. We allowed Darkrai, and you know what? Why don't you talk about this one, Owen? Because I have some strong feelings about Darkrai.
Yeah, no, for sure. So this was allowed via vote. The coaching roster decided that it was allowable, at least to test and try out, in the sense that Darkrai might be the best one on the format, or at least top 2, but the argument is that there are a lot of Pokemon in the format that are just as good as, if not better. I'm looking at you, Chien-Pao, that are already in the format and frequenting and already allowed. So with the current power creep of the generation, people want to try out Darkrai. I'm a big advocate of it. You can check it out on my channel. I made a whole video on it. But Kahlua is going to be the first one to try it out here, and I'm sure he's really excited. Regardless of it being broken or not, this is still a top 2 Pokemon in the format. Like, top 2, maybe number 1, with its speed tier, its incredible coverage options, its ability to either set up and win the game or just wall break through your team like crazy. You can set up Calm Minds. You can set up Nasty Plots. You can even be mixed with Sucker Punch and Knockoff and cool moves like that. You get what you need to hit everything, whether that be Focus Blast, Sludge Bomb, Thunderbolt, Ice Beam. It really is a phenomenal Pokemon offensively, and I'm sure Kahlua is really excited to try it and, kind of see how it goes this season. But yeah, I think it's really cool.
You listed off a whole bunch of reasons why Darkrai is the best Pokemon in the format and shouldn't be allowed. That's all I heard coming out of your mouth. I'll be honest. I think Darkrai is absurd. I think being able to be physical or special, have setup on both sides, Nasty Plot, Calm Mind, Swords Dance with access to is a superpower or close combat.
Superpower.
Superpower.
It's good for those mixed matchups into like Blissey or whatever it might be.
Something like Snorlax. Yeah. Darkrai is fantastic. There's very few checks in the format, if any, to this Pokemon, and I am excited to see how Killa uses it. I think it's just by far the best Pokemon that we have on the board. I think the vote was 7-8 as to allow or ban it, because I abstained from the vote, and so it was just a one person deciding it factor, and Darkrai was allowed. But our second pick is going to go ahead and come in here, and it's going to be a Pokemon that I am no stranger to. It is going to be Chien-Pao. The vote originally was to either ban both Darkrai or Chien-Pao, or allow both Darkrai or Chien-Pao. We had some healthy discussion about it, and we decided to end up allowing both of them. So D-Double is going to go ahead and get Chien-Pao. Go ahead and do !Coilers in the chat if you want to see it. And I'm no stranger to Chien-Pao. This is one of my favorite Pokemon I've ever used. I milk the hell out of this Pokemon in thumbnails. It's just Weavile, but slightly better. It unfortunately doesn't get knockoff, but the coverage that it does get with things like Sacred Sword and the ability to set up with Swords Dance is fantastic. It also has, obviously, dual priority in both Sucker Punch and Ice Shard, which is what really sets this Pokemon apart, on top of its ability, which makes opposing defenses 0.75 times. So that 135 base attack stat is going to ultimately be a little bit stronger than you would think. And there's, just like Darkrai, there's very few switch-ins in the entire format. There's things like Dondozo, which of course, if you hazard stack, isn't a check, but that's the case with anything. So I think Chien-Pao is crazy. I think it is the second best Pokemon on the board, only behind Darkrai. What do you think about it? Comparative to Darkrai, what do you think about it, On?
So I think that Darkrai has a higher skill ceiling, is a little bit tougher to use. I think anybody can pull up with a Chien-Pao and go to town. Now, that's not to say like, oh, Dell's only going to do good because he's Chien-Pao. Obviously, there's a skill ceiling, and you can use it, correctly and aptly. But this Pokemon, it just comes in, it clicks a button. It's very limited in its coverage in Crunch, Ice Spinner / Crash. and then Sacred Sword, Psychic Fangs, and then has dual priority on both sides. But what else do you need when you immediately lower the defense of everything coming into the field immediately, and your dual stabs are basically unresisted throughout the entirety of the format? Ice plus Dark is so hard to switch into, especially with that fighting coverage. You can Swords Dance, but really just run 4 attacks every week, and you're going to claim a KO every single time that you come in. I think this Pokemon, personally, I know John said otherwise, I think this Pokemon's better than Darkrai. I really do. And I was really big on the train of, okay, we banned Darkrai, ban Chien-Pao, because this Pokemon is ungodly disgusting. It is very, very broken.
The third pick is going to go ahead and come in here. Unfortunately, there's an error on this slide. My mistake on that. But the third pick from my clutches, Antonio is going to take Monkey Dory, the Pokemon that I wanted to try the most. Do you have some thoughts about Monkey Dory, Owen?
He's ugly as hell.
All right, please be nice to him. He looks like Obo. He looks like Ed, Ed, and Eddie, and you know which one I'm talking about. He's got that unibrow. He looks like he is very ugly. But in my opinion, Monkey Dory is just better Gengar. It is Gengar. If Gengar had Parting Shot, I believe they both have 130 special attack and around the same speed tier with 106 and 110. Is this way too early for Monkey Dory? Yes, it is only 15 points. Just so you guys know, it was not like a max point Pokemon or anything. But Antonio did not want to use this Pokemon. He just wanted to keep me from using it. So that's why he ended up taking it. I think Monkey Dory is probably a second round pick, maybe a third round pick, but Ant's going to take it here with the third overall pick. Exclamation point Nido Kings in the chat, by the way. I'm very curious to see how Ant builds around this Pokemon, because obviously not a number one option. Who just said he looks like John Jr.? Josh, please get out of my stream. He does not look like me. He looks like Obo. But I think there's a couple of different ways you can go around this. I think a lot of momentum is really good. I think Hazard Stack around Monkey Dory is really good. Are there any top tier threats that you think could make it back to Ant that would pair well with Monkey Dory?
I think the main thing with Monkey is securing something really strong offensively that really pressures the steals that are going to switch into its dual stabs. Now it does have Focus Blast, which is great coverage, but requires a lot of prediction a lot of the time. And I think you're much better off, potentially Parting Shotting or U-turning, which is another big aspect of this Pokemon. If a non-poison Mumon comes in and you can just Toxic something by U-turning out, that's incredible value that you get out of the Pokemon. I think a good offensive fighting type in particular is going to be really solid with Monkey Dory, and there's a ton of them this gen. Yeah. I think this gen has been the generation of fighting types. So if he can get like something like a great Tusk on the way back, not that he probably will, but even something like Infernape that came back, and Urshifu, Zapdos Galar, he's going to be in a good spot.
100%. And then slipping through the cracks here with the fourth overall pick, somehow Dragapult is going to make it to JV with the fourth overall pick. Exclamation point Victinis in the chat. Dragapult, obviously, probably one of the best draft Pokemon of all time, right? It's like borderline allowed no matter what. It didn't get Poltergeist, so it's still allowed. It's very good, very versatile. Obviously, not very good special attack, but the fact that it can usually run Modest, it has an elite speed tier in a dex like this, where elite speed tiers are very hard to come by. Dragapult is just so insanely valuable, and you can pretty much build around this Pokemon however you want. There's no wrong second pick unless you delve deep into the 13, 12 point range. It's very easy to build around Dragapult, and I'm very excited to see how JV uses it. Before we ask Owen about his opinion, though, we have 43 people watching right now and only 14 likes. It is completely free. Go down there and leave a like, man. It helps us out a ton. It helps push out the stream, and hopefully it helps get more people into the Draft League format. Owen, what do you think about Dragapult this generation?
Well, first, leave a like for Monkey Dory. Nothing happened to him. He's just ugly as hell. But John kind of said it. This is the best Pokemon Draft League history. I tweeted about the other day. I genuinely think this Pokemon is the best Mon Draft League history. And I'm curious as to how much money JV slid under the table to Ant. Be like, hey, man, just leave it for me. Take something else. Be a dumbass. Go ahead. Because getting Pult at pick 4 also means that the partner that you pair with it isn't going to be at the top end of the wheel like it typically would be. I know it's kind of fallen out of favor with some people because there's so many new toys this generation, so much offense. But this thing's speed tier, along with its coverage, alongside its natural typing, how bulky it can be, I genuinely don't think there's a better Mon on the format besides Chien-Pao and obviously Darkrai because we allowed them. So he got to pick later than he should have, and that doesn't seem like that much of a discrepancy. But when the first pick is Monkey Dory, it's a bit of a discrepancy.
Yeah. To answer your question, Lars, I think it's either between Dragapult or Chien-Pao this generation, and then for some reason, Darkrai whenever we allow it. Also, shout out to you guys, because not only are you guys spamming chat so fast that the chat bot cannot keep up and show your messages on screen, but I just saw our likes jump 11 likes in 1 second. So shout out to you guys. Fifth overall pick is going to come in here. It's going to be Star and the Pocket Monster University. He's the only dude who's weird on here who doesn't have a Pokemon mascot. It's Metagross, but exclamation point University for Star to check him out. He picks Iron Valiant with the 5th overall pick, which a lot of people, I've been hearing whispers, don't like Valiant this high, which is crazy to me. I think this is exactly where Valiant should go. I think it's the 5th best Pokemon, arguably, in Draft League format. At minimum, it's top 10. It's very good. Fairy plus Fighting type is fantastic, and it has all the coverage you can need. It is the best mixed attacker, and I will hold this, the best mixed attacker we have ever seen allowed in Draft League, having 130 attack and 120 special attack. I might have it flipped, with a very good speed tier and 116 and the ability to run booster energy with Quirk Drive is obviously awesome, being able to boost attack, special attack, or speed. This Pokemon can just do it all, man. I really don't see how people don't like Valiant as much as I do. I think it's fantastic, and I think it is a cornerstone piece, and I'm very excited to see how Star drafts around this Pokemon. Oh, and you're a hater, if I do recall correctly, of Iron Valiant.
So Valiant has not beat the fraud allegations, no. Now, this season, it totally can. Now, when I say that, I don't think Valiant is bad. I think it's a round 1 pick. For sure. It is a round 1 pick, but I do lean towards the lower end. I'm very interested to see how Star does. I think its damage output is a bit lacking a lot of the times without that Terra boost, especially in a generation where everything is just bigger and better, as it has been in all of Gen 9 Paldea. With Terra, I think it's a little bit overwhelming, but I think a creative builder and a proper draft around it still makes this Pokemon, I would totally understand a top 10 spot for it. So this isn't an egregious pick by any means. It's definitely a very, very solid Pokemon. One of the best dual typings in the game too, Fairy Fighting. There's nothing that resists that dual stabs besides Aegislash, who has not graced our presence with him yet. Yeah, I think this is still a very solid pick for Star. Not my favorite Pokemon in the world, but you know, he could be the first person I see do really well with non-Terra Valiant. So
I hope so.
Excited.
I really hope so. By the way, guys, I just realized I wasn't playing music, so I just started that. If it's too loud or if Owen's too loud, let me know in the chat. Shout out to D-Ray for letting me know that. But our next pick, we're gonna have arguably what I think is probably a little bit better than Valiant, but also a little bit more boring because it can only run a couple of different sets, is gonna be Urshifu. Urshifu is better this generation for 2 main reasons. The first of which, it got Swords Dance, which isn't as big of a buff as you would think with a Pokemon that is typically gonna be either Band or Scarf, but it also is in a generation where there are almost no defensive fairies. There are so few defensive fairies, and Urshifu can abuse them so easily. There's Clefable now, which obviously Urshifu doesn't like, but there weren't a number implemented to where Urshifu is bad. What do you think about Urshifu, Owen?
Oh man, this thing's incredible. I think it's a great pick for Brody in particular too. In the past, I've seen him do really well with just pure wall breakers. I don't have to think. I come in, I click Wicked Blow, I click Close Combat. I might click U-Turn every once in a while, but realistically, it's a Pokemon that doesn't even need to click it. Your fairy comes in, sure, you might have one of the 3 defensive fairies in the format. They're still gonna take 40%. You better hope they're holding boots, because they might be 2-hit KO'd after hazards by a band variant, and they're forced to do a recovery turn immediately. And if you don't have one of those 4 fairies, you have to position yourself to never let Urshifu come in, because it will kill something on your team. Every single time. I think this Pokemon's great. It's definitely a top 10 Pokemon in the format, in my opinion. It's leaning on that top 5 slot for me. And it's going to be a really solid pick. And it's also really fun and easy to draft around, man. You get those, few Clef Sylveon matchups where something can switch into Wicked Blow, but then you get a crazy Poison or Steel, and you just rip through them after a U-turn. So I'm definitely big on the Urshifu pick here. Good one from Brody.
Yeah, and I think it fits Brody very well, as you said, because Brody is very much so a click button type of player, and Urshifu fits that very well. Speaking of click button type of Pokemon, the next Pokemon that we have to cue exclamation point Dragapults in the chat is going to be Spectrier. Spectrier got so much better this generation due to the fact that it got Draining Kiss, allowing it to hit obviously dark types, which otherwise would wall it. It still doesn't have anything for normal types really, and because normal types and dark types are the 2 things that wall it, you're gonna want to pair it with a good fighting type. But I think overall Spectrier, in my opinion, is probably a top 10 Pokemon in the format. Ghost Stab is extremely spammable. It has an elite speed tier in 130. It has setup with Calm Mind and Nasty Plot, and obviously special Moxie. So if you're able to pick up a KO, Spectrier can completely just overwhelm the opponent and go for a sweep if they don't have any Scarfers, any priority, anything like that. Spectrier is a demon, and I'm very excited to see how Q potentially builds around this Pokemon, hopefully with a strong fighting type in the back.
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously an incredible Pokemon. Not my cup of tea, but like objectively a top 10, top 5 Pokemon in the format. The big thing with Spectrier is, one, like you said, an offensive fighting is very important. But I think something you really need to hammer home is passive damage, hazards, status, momentum, whittling down those fat checks to Spectrier, forcing them into boots because you have a million spikes and T-spikes, or getting something like a Sneasel like I paired with in WPF because you get those poison touch U-turns, or one of the new, trio. If we're spreading poisons, we're chipping down the checks and we're hexing through everything. So pretty fun mon to draft around. He can definitely do it.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, Nightbot, thank you for saying that. For as low as 99 cents a month, you can become a channel member and get some cool emotes like some Chien-Pao. If you guys have those in the chat, go ahead and drop them right now. Might as well. I'm shameless. Go ahead and drop them. Also, no, Mingo, you can't run Quick Claw, Quick Draw. Get out of here, man. Quick Claw is banned. But yeah, Spectrier is awesome. I really love it with Hazard Stack. I love it with a good fighting, obviously. I prefer the fighting to have momentum. I actually had Urshifu plus Spectrier once before, and that was very, very, very fun. So I'm excited to see where Q goes as far as what Pokemon he's going to pair with it. Our next pick is going to come in here, a Pokemon that was extremely buffed this generation from the #1 Garchomp hater this side of the Mississippi. Keegan is going to take Baxcalibur because he said it's simply better than Garchomp. First of all, he's incorrect. Let's just get that out of the way.
Very.
Bax is very good. Obviously, the addition of Scale Shot makes it really cool. It doesn't make it overwhelming by any means. It's still a top tier threat now. It is now a solidified top tier threat. You can't really argue it, in my opinion. It has access to things like Ice Shard with 145 base attack. I want to say Dragon Ice type is obviously very good. We've learned that from Pure Black. It has all the coverage it could need. It has things like Earthquake, and it has access to Dragon Dance, which is a big buff that obviously Baxcalibur does have over Garchomp. However, it's just not Garchomp. It's still a good Pokemon though, but I'm still shocked that the #1 Garchomp hater decided to take Baxcalibur over Garchomp.
Like you said, still definitely a much better mon. I wasn't a big fan of non-Terra Bax before the DLC, before I got Scale Shot, but now I think the option to go Swords Dance and either just blow something up with a Glaive Rush or an EQ or an Icicle Crash or Spear. Now we can still boost our speed and be immediately very powerful. You'd be surprised how many things can live a +1 Glaive Rush despite it being ungodly strong. But there's not as many things that can live a +2 Glaive Rush. Honestly, unless you're immune to it or you're the bulkiest steel in the format, you're probably getting blown the hell up. So definitely a really solid Pokemon and pretty easy to draft around too. I definitely think it's not a very hard mon to draft around. Get some hazards, get some momentum and pivots to getting in, and it's gonna go crazy.
Yeah, definitely. You don't think the ability puts Bax above Chomp. While Baxcalibur does have a fantastic ability, it is still kind of niche, not being able to get burned. It is nice to be able to set up in the face of things like Rotom Wash and stuff like that, but Garchomp just has such an amazing typing and an already amazing speed tier to where it doesn't need to boost it with 102. In a dual stab breaks pretty much everything. There's not really very many fairies that resist Earthquake, so that's why I think Garchomp is the better choice, but that's neither here nor there. The next pick is going to be Palafin. Now, I am pick 11. This is pick 9, and then Obo is pick 10. So there are 3 picks before me, including this one, or 2 picks before me, including this one. And at this point in the draft, there were 3 Pokemon I wanted, and unfortunately, Palafin was #1 on the list. So Nate's gonna get a hero here in Palafin, who I think is a very good Pokemon. Obviously, the big downside of Palafin is going to be its ability 0 to Hero, which you need to switch out before you are able to turn into this big behemoth of a Pokemon with 160 base attack, but with the ability to flip turn as well as a decent enough base 100 speed, or just the ability to hard switch out. It's not too difficult to do that, especially if you just lead the Pokemon. Palafin's really cool to build around. I personally think Hazard Stack is the way to go. I think pivots are the way to go. I think if he can do that, then building around Palafin's going to be awesome. You also obviously need ways to break waters, because in a format where Palafin cannot Terra, the big downside of Palafin, besides its ability, is going to be its ability to break waters, in which it doesn't really have any. It has Grass Knot for things like Dondozo, but other than that, that's kind of all it really has.
Not 100%. Still a really good Pokemon. It's just going to be mainly like the positioning of it can be a little bit finicky. If you're just bot leading Palafin every week, your opponent can grab immediate momentum. But also if you're sitting in the back and it's, 3v3 and you still haven't turned your Palafin, you're going to lose momentum and it's going to be a little bit tough. So definitely a really, really solid Pokemon, but it's very finicky in how it's positioned. But once you get it in, it's going to click a button, it's going to kill something. So definitely a really solid pickup from Nate here. Something I do want to mention though too is a lot of water's getting Scald back. I think kind of makes Palafin a little bit more tough because it still can like sub bulk up on them, but now it can't afford to run just like leftovers taunt bulk up and bully them down, because now it has to think about coming in on burns and not taking advantage of those waters and kind of being burned and neutered for the whole game. So just small things to keep in mind.
Yeah, 100%. Lars, I think, said it best. Palafin enjoyers hate this trick, water absorb. I think he really covered it well there. But Palafin's still a good Pokemon. But a Pokemon that I think is probably better than Palafin. Here he goes, my dog, Garchomp, with the 10th overall pick. The pick before me, man. So sad. This Pokemon, it is the best it's ever been, probably. Debatably, it was better with Z-Moves, but I think this is probably the best it's ever been. The combination of spikes and Scale Shot with Sword. You can simply be Swords Dance, Hazard, Earthquake, Scale Shot every single week, and you have probably a pretty good matchup into whatever may be in front of you. Obviously, there's some niche things in draft that can stop you, like Air Balloon Fairies, but that's why we can prep. I think Garchomp is amazing. It's an amazing baseline. I just personally think you have to draft around it in a way that it's not forced to be defensive, to where it can be either that offensive role or the defensive role that it can run well with things like getting spikes up and then throwing off a Dragon Tail, even things like Rest Talk, Rocky Helmet. I think Garchomp has maybe one of the most versatile movesets and the ability to be one of the most versatile Pokemon currently in the decks. And in my opinion, it's a top 5 Pokemon, and I'm shocked to see it go this late.
I agree. This is a crazy pickup for Obo. And like you said, I think this is better than Bax. Like, no contest, because of the fact that yes, you can win the game with SD Scale Shot, just like Bax. You can't Dragon Dance, but you can win the game still, right? Great win con potential, but the fact that you can go Scarf, you can go Band, you can go Mixed, you can go Dual Hazards, you can go Endure, Rocky Helmet, Fizz Def, and not die to any physical attack, even random Ice Punches. This thing, or even Assault Vest. I love Assault Vest Garchomp. I think it's also a phenomenal set with crazy coverage, unresisted dual stab. This is a top 5 Pokemon in the format, just objectively. It is unbelievably good.
100%.
And I'm very surprised to see Obo getting a 10.
I know. I was hoping it got it to me at 11, but Garchomp's one of those Pokemon that has the ability to set up for itself later in the game by setting up spikes and rocks, which I think is just absurd. Like, it is absurd, the potential that Garchomp has. I just wish that a good player got it. Unfortunately, it's going to be Obo. Exclamation point, more Picos in the chat. Or it might have been more Pico, singular. Hold on. Oh, wait, Josh put it. Yeah. Exclamation point, more Pico. All right, boys, your Portland Nightshaders are up, and the last Pokemon on my list of things that I wanted was going to be Great Tusk, and that's what made it to me here. Great Tusk, I think, is a fantastic Pokemon. There have been like waves of people who think it's top 3 in the format, and there have been waves of people who think it's thank you so much, Zombie, for the membership, for Snom Junior membership. Thank you. There have been waves of people who think that it's maybe top 15. I rank it around 10, so I think I got it pretty much where it's supposed to be. Thank you so much, Danny, for gifting a membership. I think Great Tusk is awesome. I think the ability to rapid spin and being probably the best spinner we've ever seen, as well as get rocks up, is fantastic. Great Tusk is so awesome. And while it might not be the strongest pick at 11, I think I have the opportunity to build a very, very good team around it.
It's a great glue piece. I think that's the big thing. I think it glues a team better than even Gen 7 and 8 Lando did. The fact that it can spin and spins such a buff move now, the fact that it actually does damage and can boost your speed, and you can go bulk up, you can go Fizz Def, you can go AV. There's a lot of things you can do. Go Choice Band, because what switches into ground plus fighting plus Ice Spinner or Stone Edge? Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing switches into those moves, so you click the right button, you kill something. I love this thing in BBR when I had it. I think it is debatably, again, a top 10 Pokemon, and if it's outside of it, it's by a very small margin. I think it's a super valid pick to grab this thing in the top 10. So yeah, you got it outside of it, it's even better.
I liked it a lot. One thing we also didn't touch on was the ability to sweep with Rapid Spin plus Bulk Up or Rapid Spin plus Booster Energy. And you used Great Tusk recently in a league, didn't you?
It was BBR.
BBR, yeah.
Not this last season, but the season before. It was a great mon. Again, there are matchups. You can even technically go boost your speed with like max HP variants. And you can immediately get that bulk up and then be +1 speed because of your booster energy and sweep through teams that way. Or like you said, you can even be AV and have it still be a win con because you get up a spin, you're faster than everything, and you just kill everything because your attack stat is 8 million and you have unresisted dual stat plus coverage. So
100%.
It's a crazy mon.
Thank you guys again for the memberships. Really appreciate it. The next pick is going to be a Pokemon that has not yet beat the fraud allegations. I think it's still really good. It's rated all over the place. Roaring Moon is going to go to KJ and the Indeedees. I think Roaring Moon is sick. I think the fact that it got knockoff is awesome. It has an actual really good dark stab now. Dragon Dance set became a whole lot more viable. It has the ability to taunt in a lot of things faces, things that want to toxic it. It can taunt in those faces, like a useless Umbreon, like a trash Umbreon mayhaps. Maybe something that I have an emote for that you could become a member to get. It could set up in that thing's face by taunting and then Dragon Dancing. I think Roaring Moon is a very good Pokemon. I understand why people don't like it without Terra. I think that, yeah, maybe it's lacking a couple of different things, but it's awesome speed tier. It's awesome attack stat, the ability to run banded with U-turn, the ability to set up. I think Roaring Moon is awesome. Owen likes his design, but I don't think you like it, huh?
It makes me so upset because I love it. It's a Paradox form, my favorite Pokemon of all time. It's obviously up there in the top 3 because of that, but I just don't think it's good. I don't think it's good without Terra. With Terra, it's a phenomenal Pokemon, but it's really weak initially. You'd be very surprised at how little damage this Pokemon does. I think knockoff forcing its own progress is very solid because those helmets and those leftovers and those boots that the Switch are going to use are great. I'm not a big fan of Dragon Dance variants a lot of the time, though. I think Dragon Dance variants are most well used in the matchup where you can go mono attack and you can DD taunt Roost and be super fat and annoying and sit on the field until you can win as a good late game win con. Now, obviously, you can go offensive. Other than that, though, I think you're going to lean more on choice band variants. I've seen Assault Vest do a lot of work. It's a great Chi-Yu check. So, like, bulky Roost sets are also going to be very solid. It looks so good on paper until you actually start building with it. I'm very interested to see how he approaches building with it because it can be very solid. It's just going to be very interesting. I think he's going to need a lot of hazard support. A lot of hazard support to make this guy work.
What were you guys talking about? Great Tusk upside down. I didn't see that on my end. I'm not really sure what was going on there. Anyway, another Pokemon that to some people have not beat the fraud allegations this generation. I think this Pokemon is crazy, and I think if you put it outside of your top 10, you're out of your mind. It's Tornadus. Tornadus Therian is a very good Pokemon. It lost Defog. It got a knockback, though. It still has heavy-duty boots. It still has plot. It still has coverage. It still has the best ability in singles in Regenerator, while being one of the best pivots. And flying is, of course, one of the most spammable types in the entire game with Hurricane. The only downside of Tornadus is you have to hit your Hurricanes. It gets Heat Wave for the steals. I Focus Blast for the steals as well. I can't think of anything besides Defog that Tornadus is really missing to make it that super top tier threat. And I know you're also a big Tornadus fan, aren't you?
Oh, this Pokemon's top 5. I think genuinely Tornadus is a good glue Pokemon. And now that I got knockback, now before knock, for sure not there. But now that I got knockback, as dumb as that sounds, now I can just be a bot and I can run Hurricane, knock off, taunt, U-turn. I'm going to switch into whatever I want to switch into. I'm not going to be 2-hit KO'd. I'm not going to take hazard damage because I have boots on, and I'm going to knock off. I'm going to U-turn. I'm going to taunt your fat. And flying moves in general, you don't have to be invested. If your steel type comes in, takes a knockoff, no more leftovers. I have a spike up in rocks. You're going to switch into me one more time with my Hurricane. That's it. And then my Tornadus is going to be able to claim KOs from there. You also have the option of Bleakwood, which is a tiny bit more accurate. Now, depends on the matchup and which one you want to run, but honestly, I think Lean Hurricane, both of them miss a lot. But still, again, a very solid Pokemon, and it has that option to go Nasty Plot. I think without Terra, Torn plays a little bit more defensively, but with Terra, it's obviously like incredible with a Nasty Plot and whatever Terra typing and coverage it wants. This Pokemon is incredible. I love this thing. It's so good.
Yeah, Lars said it best again. The one thing missing from Torn T, missing to be a top tier threat, is literally missing, which is completely accurate. The next pick is a Pokemon that I think is trash. I think this Pokemon sucks. It's not good at all. It's horrible. It's Iron Bundle. I'm gonna need you to defend yourself a little bit here with this pick, Owen.
He has not beat the fraud allegations. There was nothing cool left. And my philosophy on drafting, I won't lie, it was a shitty pick. Nothing cool was left. My philosophy on Pokemon in general is if there's any value to them and people think it's good, I might not be a big fan of it. I want to give it a go. I want to draft the best around it so I can violently scream when I think it's terrible. And I've done that throughout the day. Trust me. I won't tell you a Pokemon's awful until I try it. On paper, it's very solid, right? Really high speed tier. The ability to boost speed or special attack with booster energy. It has unresisted coverage and freeze dry, ice beam, hydro pump. The only downside is hitting our hydro pumps, and it really reminds me of Valiant in a lot of ways, in the sense that the damage output without Terra is mediocre sometimes. It really is. You're missing out on those Okos, those 2-hit KOs. So it really requires good hazard support, good other offensive breakers. It can grab momentum for self, a flip turn, U-turn. It gets taunt encore. So I think it can be used really well. I've used it with Terra and absolutely loved it, but it has not beat the non-Terra like fraud allegations. We're going to see how it goes. I actually think I drafted a really fun team around it. So if it sucks, you'll know by the end of the season. I'll yell about it. Trust me.
Yeah, I think Iron Bundle is best suited on teams that have hazard stacking as well as a lot of momentum, similar to something like I think I said Spectrier earlier. I think it's very good on teams like that. I don't like Iron Bundle. I think he's kind of trash, but he does grab momentum. And for some reason, everybody forgets that he gets Flip Turn. I feel like I very rarely see Flip Turn ran on this Pokemon, but I feel like it's
because typical Switch-ins are going to resist water and they might not resist Bug, so it's a little bit more damage.
Yeah, well, also, no, I mean no momentum in general.
Oh, no momentum. Oh, I got you. I thought you were saying one or the other. No, I mean, definitely. I think with Terra, a little bit less so, because you can run like Hydro Pump, Terra Blast, Ice Beam, Freeze Dry, and why grab momentum when you 2-hit KO everything. But on non-Terra bundle, excuse me, you're definitely going to be running a little bit more momentum.
Yeah, 100%. Our next pick, our 15th overall pick, is going to be Lars, who's going to take Meowscarada, who I think, in my opinion, this was a little bit early. I think, oh, yo, thank you, Nightbot. You're right. For as low as 99 cents a month, you can become a channel member. I think Meowscarada was a little bit early. I think it's a good second option on a team. But obviously, Lars is near the wheel, so he has the ability to choose a really good top-tier Pokemon still, because there's still some really good ones there to pair with Meowscarada. And maybe he just really wanted to use Meowscarada, and he didn't think Amel would take his top-tier threat, which makes complete sense. Meowscarada is cool. It has a very good speed tier, and I think 123. It has momentum. It has Flower Trick, which is a really good ability on top of Knockoff, Priority, and Sucker Punch. Obviously, it has Protein, Hazards. It's a very good Pokemon, and I think it's a very good second option on pretty much any team.
Yeah, I love Meow. I think it's a great Pokemon. Again, I agree. I think this is a bit early. I definitely don't think I look at a team and I go, I want to build around Meowscarada. But again, it's a very top-heavy board. There's a lot of really cool things up there. But I actually totally agree in the sense of, like, maybe you get what you really, really want to grab right now. Because the top of the board was really underwhelming. I felt that way the pick before. So, I mean, a pick after, he might feel even more so. So I definitely think it was a little bit early, but it's still a great Pokemon. It does a ton of things, whether it be like banded sets, boot sets, setting up spikes, running mix, taunting things. Great great priority and Sucker Punch as well. Protein's a great ability, so it's definitely not a bad Pokemon in the slightest. Definitely a solid pickup here from Lars.
Yeah, 100%. As people are saying in the chat, yeah, it makes sense as a wheel pick for sure. If he just really wanted to use it and he wants his top tier threat, he doesn't think Amel will take it, or he's indecisive of his top tier threat and really wants to use Meowscarada. This definitely makes sense as a back wheel pick. This is something you'll see from time to time, and I don't think Meowscarada is bad by any means. D-Ray just said this is perfect. D-Ray, please get out of my chat. I don't want to see you say that shit anymore. We are going to see Ursaluna Blood Moon from Amel. It's Amel. Do exclamation point ice shoes, guys, please. It's Amel. I love Amel. He's gonna take Ursaluna Blood Moon. The thumbnail Pokemon made it this late, which I was very surprised by. Ursaluna is very cool. Obviously, this Pokemon, as opposed to normal Ursaluna, is special. It doesn't really have the best coverage, but it has Hyper Voice, Earth Power, and Vacuum Wave, and it has the Mind's Eye ability, which is essentially scrappy just for this Pokemon. Ursaluna Blood Moon is really cool. I'm not sure how I feel about it in draft yet. I don't really think that I have an opinion on it yet because I haven't seen it used, and I think it's really cool that Amel is going to be the first person that I see use this. Have you used this Pokemon any?
So I haven't used it, but I have been seeing it used recently. Clash of Kings just started, and I've seen it used in a lot of games. We have an Ursaluna Blood Moon in one. I wasn't super big on this thing when it dropped. I think this mom might be the truth. I won't lie to you. I think it is leagues better than regular Ursaluna. Leagues better.
Wow.
And it is unguardable. You have Recovery and Moonlight. You have Calm Mind to set up. You have the Earth Power and then your Blood Moon move that, you know, it kills everything. But on top of Vacuum Wave, you have Focus Blast. You have Moon Blast. This thing is really, really, really strong and very hard to kill. It has a great stab combination. I actually really like this Pokemon, and I can see it going higher in drafts than it did in this draft right now. I think this is a bona fide round one pick. This Pokemon is really incredible.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've not really seen it in action. I've only seen, I think I saw JV use it in a Wi-Fi game before, and maybe Q use it as well. That is literally my knowledge on Ursaluna Blood Moon, other than looking at its typing and move pool. But yeah, if you say it's that good, man, then I believe you. But that's going to do it here for round one. We're actually going to just go ahead and jump to the round one recap. We had some really... Oh, shoot. The chat's in the way. That's okay. You guys just don't talk too much, please. But before we get in this recap, now's a great time to remind you guys that leaving a like on the video is free. We currently have 54 viewers and just under 40 likes. It's completely free. It helps me and Owen out a ton, pushes out the stream, and hopefully grows this community and gets more people into Draft League, the game that we love. But what do you think about round one? What's your favorite pick and your least favorite pick from this round, Owen?
I am really excited to see Darkrai used against the guy who's advocating for it being allowed. I'm really excited for it to be used and see how it does. I think JV got a steal at pick 4, Dragapult. I think there was a lot of things that went a little early. in this draft. Definitely. I think, again, I know we disagree on this. I think pick 5 Valiant's a little bit early for my taste. I think that the Moon has not beat fraud allegations yet. I think he's still definitely a round 2 guy. And then Meowscar's a little bit early, but again, we're getting through, so it makes sense a little bit more. And then obviously Ant got fucking Monkey Dory. I love Ant. And I think his team actually turns out really well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he took this because he wanted to use it plus to fuck with you.
Yeah.
But that,
no, I know.
Be anywhere
I'm aware.
near the first round. That thing he's ugly and not that good. No, it's still really good. So we'll see. It's definitely an interesting first round. I don't want to cast judgment on a team when they have 1 Pokemon, because you could draft something a little early and still end up with a great team. So
yeah, 100%. For those asking in the chat, the Terra rules on this. So we are doing low tier Terra, 12 points and below. The Terra points add up to 12 points total, and that's kind of what's going to happen. So none of these Pokemon on your screen right now can Terra. It'll be about... Actually, I think the first Terramon gets selected very soon. I think it is quite literally 2 picks away when the next Terra Pokemon gets selected. But if there's any other rules or any other clarity that you guys need, just go ahead and let me know. But yeah, if you guys haven't already, join the Discord server. Yeah, 5 dark types. I was going to mention that this is by far the best generation for dark types. I don't know about you, but last generation, I didn't play too much in Gen 8, but I was always bitching about the fact that there were not that many good dark types, and that I always felt like I was drafting the same 3 dark types. This generation, there are so many good dark types. They introduce so many good ones. It's really, really cool to see.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. I bet you do think Monkey Dory is underpriced. You gotta say that out loud. I know you.
Yo, the more Ant says that, the more I think Ant looks like Monkey Dory, if we're gonna be completely honest. Oh, so yeah, you can have up to 3 Terra Pokemon, but the total cost can only be 12 points. So if you have 2 Pokemon that cost 6 points with Terra, you can have both of those. That's fine. But the total cost can only be 12 points. It's a little complicated, and I made a video on it somewhere on the channel way back, which you can check out. But any other questions, just let me know, and I'll try to make it as clear as possible for everybody, because everybody was confused, don't get me wrong, but I wanted to try low tier Terra. So but I think with that, we're gonna go ahead and jump into round 2 if you're ready.
No, let's do it.
All right, the first pick's going to be Amo pairing with Ursaluna Blood Moon is going to be Infernape, which is, it's weird seeing Amo take 2 Pokemon above 15 points back to back in round 1 and 2. This is like a sight for sore eyes. I'm not sure I've ever seen this with an Amo draft, and I think Infernape plus Ursaluna Blood Moon, in theory, I think they work really, really well.
Yeah, no, I think it's really fun. Infernape also looks great this gen. It's got all the tools that I had in the past on top of Knockoff, which is a really, really valuable tool on a Pokemon that forces very specific switch-ins. Now that that water type might come in, and it might have leftovers or boots, but it's going to take a knockoff. You get up a spike, now you 2-hit KO everything with close combat. Very, very versatile Pokemon, whether it be offensively on both sides of the spectrum, or even defensively. Do not sleep on your Will-O-Wisp slack off, Infernape sets and things like that. I think, and it got Drain Punch this gen, which it didn't have before, for God knows why, for so many years. So I think this is actually very much so an Amo Pokemon. Like it is a higher point Pokemon, but it's very versatile, and I think he's going to use it really well.
100%, yeah. And somebody mentioned the other day, I don't remember who it was, but the item that Urshifu runs, Punching Glove, is actually really viable on Infernape now, which is really, really cool to see. But yeah, Amo getting this is crazy. Yeah. With the Iron Fist boost as well. Not Annihilate. Did I accidentally say Annihilate instead of Infernape? Oops, my bad if I did. Is there a tier list for this league? So there will be a tier list that we release, a fan document that we released after the draft, and then you guys will be able to see everybody's picks. So it's going to come back around to Lars, and I was very surprised by this pick, a staple John Jr. Pokemon, a Pokemon that I love a lot. It definitely was in my plans to pick with Great Tusk at some point, is going to be Glamora, another Pokemon that you just have to assume Lars really, really wanted to use, wanted a really big hazard stacking team, and he thinks that he can wait on his high tier Pokemon another round, which is completely fair. If he thinks a top tier threat is going to make it back to him, then so be it. It is extremely risky though, because having top tier threat Meowscarada is obviously not going to do too much for you, but I like Glamora in concept. It gives you a remover, it gives you all types of spikes. It's literally hazardbot.exe, but the combination of Meowscarada plus Glamora obviously again just tells you he really thinks his top tier threat will make it back to him round 3. What do you think, Owen?
I'm not a fan of this pick personally. I'm okay with the Meowscarada round 1 again towards the wheel, but Glamora as a supporting piece is a great Pokemon, a really, really solid Pokemon. But I think grabbing 2 elite spikers like back to back seems very redundant when we can fill our roles and kind of flesh out the team in a different way. Now, it's never a bad thing to have 2 spikers, but what worries me is later on, like you said, will he be able to fill out the team, get that top tier threat that is immediately threatening? opposed to having just two really good spikers. You know, Meowscarada is a spiker that always gets one up, and so is Glamora. But I wonder if those clash a little bit and kind of, you know, muddy the team a little bit. I don't know. I definitely think it's a great Pokemon, and he can still fix it, or like fill it out well. He doesn't have anything to fix yet. He can still fill it out really well, but it makes me nervous for later, grabbing very redundant roles and redundant Pokemon back to back.
Yeah. And actually, next up is going to be you taking the first Terra Pokemon off of the board. Again, any Pokemon 12 points and below, I'll go ahead and say Okidogi is definitely top 5 Terra Pokemon we allowed. It's definitely, I think, a 13-point Pokemon, but I decided for the content, let's put it in 12. Let's let somebody Terra it. Unfortunately, it's going to be Owen. So go ahead, just talk about it, Owen.
I think this one is the truth. Looking at this thing's move pool, I think in stats, this thing is really, really gross. The poison fighting typing on top of Toxic Chain is really obnoxious because the Pokemon that are immune to that poison that you're going to get from just attacking are Pokemon you massacre. You have the fighting typing for steel types, obviously, blow them up, and you have high horsepower coverage for, you know, opposing poisons, and you can set up all over them typically very easily. We can run with bulk up sets. We have elemental punches. We also get knockoff as well, which is, again, very, very valuable on a Pokemon like this, especially considering that fighting poison typing might kind of force in some psychics and some things that are weak to knock. It's also going to be one of our Terra typings that we're running this season is going to be Terra Dark. It gives us a boost on that knockoff, a stab bonus, as well as a very solid defensive typing, kind of flipping a lot of our weaknesses. We're also fighting on it right now too. I did change it for week 2. I think I changed it to Dark Fairy, but for week 1 at least, we're fighting. It was kind of just like strong close combat, but I ended up changing it to Fairy after I played Keegan and BBR Summer Scramble, and he used Fairy against me, and I was like, oh shit, that's actually a good type. I'm gonna yoink that real quick. But yeah, I'm definitely really excited to use Oki. I think it's like top 5. I thought originally it was the best Terramon by far, but then I saw some other stuff that I missed, and there's definitely some really good ones on the board. So.
Speaking of Terra, we're going to go ahead and have our next Terra Pokemon come off the board here. It's a little bit unfortunate for Danny because he drafted this prior to us knowing how adaptability worked with Terra. So he's going to go ahead and grab Terra Crawdon, who is going to be Terra Water and Terra Dark. But if you guys did not know, unfortunately, adaptability gets nerfed a little bit to... I'm not exactly sure how it gets nerfed, but it gets nerfed to where only the Terra type gets boosted, and it gets boosted by a little bit less. So if he Terras into water, only water moves get boosted by adaptability, and it's a little bit less than it would be stacking with Terra, so it's not as good as it otherwise would be, which is a little unfortunate for Danny to pick it this early, in my opinion.
Yeah, it sucks. I love Mr. Kroll. I think in general it's a great Pokemon, actually. It's a Pokemon that's more so a luxury. If you had extra points, you're like, damn, I want something strong. Because it doesn't fill a defensive niche and it's very slow. But there's going to be those matchups where Crawdon's going to find opportunities to come in, maybe from a U-turn from Tornadus, and it's going to click a fucking button and something's going to die. There's no switch-ins to Mr. Craw. It is our top agent here. So I'm definitely excited to see how he uses it. And with Terra, it's still going to get a boost to one of its stabs, depending on what it tears into. It's just unfortunate it's not as much as we would have thought, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And next up is actually... there's this Pokemon on the board that I thought the KJ should have taken, but he actually opts to take Manaphy, which isn't a bad pick by any means. We probably underpriced it because I didn't know about the move Take Heart, which if you don't know is essentially Calm Mind plus Heal Bell only for Manaphy in one move. It's really cool. Manaphy's definitely one of the best it's ever been, other than probably with Z moves. It's still got Tail Glow back. Tail Glow is no longer Snap, so Manaphy's definitely a serviceable Pokemon with good coverage like Surf, Energy Ball, and Dazzling Gleam. It still has U-turn. It still has Knockoff. It has a lot of utility. I think Manaphy's really cool. I've never been too big of a fan of it, but it's very hard to deny the fact that this Pokemon is extremely good now that it has the ability to use Take Heart.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was also kind of the same train. I'm sure you know from... I was never a big Manaphy guy either. But I do think it is much, much better this generation with that Take Heart move. Calm Mind plus Refresh in one move is really obnoxious because if you see a more fat Manaphy, you're going to say, okay, now they have to run Scald, Rest, Calm Mind in order to do that. It's a lot slower of a setup, but now we can just run, you know, Take Heart plus Protect and Lefties, or we can run that plus Rest, Sleep, Talk and wake ourselves up. So it makes those fat Manaphy sets so much better and they command a lot more respect, on top of the fact that you could just go Tail Glow and blow through everything. It's the fact that Manaphy can do both that makes it really, really solid. And I'm excited to see how it goes. Knowing where KJ went with his team too, I actually really like this pick. So
yeah, 100%. 100%. Next up, it's your boy again, Portland Nightshade. Let's go, baby. We decided to get Clefable with this second pick. I think Clefable having a good defensive fairy in this meta is insane. There's not that many. There's like 3 good defensive fairies total, and Clefable is by far, bar none, the best defensive fairy in the format. It still lost soft-boiled, unfortunately, but it still has access to Moonlight. It still has access to Wish. It is the Clefable that we have all known and loved, minus soft-boiled. This Pokemon's still great. Thunder Wave. It has access to knockoff still. It has a lot of great utility, and it's an unaware Pokemon to prevent opposing Pokemon from setting up. I also like its pairing with Great Tusk because Great Tusk breaks the steals for Clefable. I think that this was a great second overall pick, and I was shocked that this Pokemon made it back to me.
Oh no, definitely a great Pokemon. That's Godclef, best fairy in the format. I mean, it's so nice to have the backbone of like an unaware Clef into a scary setup matchup, or even having, you know, just Magic Guard plus, you know, leftovers or whatever you want to be. You can run Life Orb with a Magic Guard. If you don't need the leftovers recovery, you can be defensive Clefable, but then have Life Orb, Magic Guard boosted attacks with Moonblast and Flamethrower. You can Calm Mind up. You can Wish up things. You can do so many things with this thing. It's Jack of all trades, master of none, but it's so good at what it does. It's just a great Pokemon. I'm definitely excited to see you use Clef this season, because, you know, it's been gone for so long, and I think it's a really much needed add to the defensive you know, pool of Paldea.
Yeah, 100%. And the Pokemon that I actually almost took instead of Clefable, because I think this pairing would have been great too, went next. It's going to be Chi-Yu. As much as I am the biggest Chi-Yu hater in the entire Pokemon community, Chi-Yu is still a very good second overall option, and its pairing next to Garchomp is kind of nasty. Chi-Yu burns through those grass types that Garchomp doesn't like. It didn't get anything extra in this DLC to my knowledge. It's still the same Chi-Yu that sucks as the number 1 option, and it's probably the worst 17-pointer, but it's still a really good Pokemon. It's still a really good second option, and I think its pairing with Garchomp is really, really nice. I think they break super well for each other, and I think if Owen gets some momentum with this team, I think this team is going to be great.
Oh, yeah, I definitely actually really like this pick. I'm not big on Chi-Yu, but like you said, I think it's like a second option, round 2 pick, a wheel option with another big threat that facilitates well. It's going to be very, very strong, and it's a click button Pokemon, and those are always fun to use. They force very specific prep too, and there's going to be matchups where you just don't have Chi-Yu counterplay. And on top of the hazard stack that Garchomp also allows, on top of Chi-Yu breaking through Garchomp's checks and finding free switch-ins on Garchomp's checks, it's going to be very, very difficult for teams to deal with Garchomp Chi-Yu. I actually really like the score from MOBA. So.
Yeah, no, I just wish that we were able to see a good player use this core. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, I wish that we were able to see somebody who doesn't look like Monkey Dory.
Can I say, he's gonna knock on your door later and be like, hey man, did you know the stream earlier?
Dude, he went to go get food. He's gonna come back and be like, yo, what have you been saying about me on the stream?
Hey man, you've been really mean during the draft stream, and I think we should talk about it.
Next up, Nate is gonna do a very good pairing, in my opinion. Lando plus Palafin. The only thing he has to worry about with these two together is gonna be grass types and water types as well. Those are gonna be a little bit difficult for this team to deal with, but obviously you can patch that up in round 3 with a good fire type pretty easily. Lando plus Palafin is really nice. It gives rocks, it gives you taunt, it gives you knock. Lando is just like probably one of the best support Pokemon in the draft.
Knock, by the way, didn't get knocked back.
It didn't get knocked back?
No, only torn.
This Pokemon sucks. I've decided. Let's move on.
What a shitty pair. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, I do think that an underrated aspect of this core, too, is the fact that I feel like Palafin and Landers are going to have very similar pivots and very similar switch-ins a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. A lot of water resists and water types are typically going to want to come in on Palafin, and same thing for Landers, because they're going to be your physically defensive wall, and if that grass type comes in and it has to take a fat U-turn from big Lando T-Money, and then your Palafin comes in and it kills it with Ice Punch. So I actually think it opens up Palafin a lot because of the dual physically offensive pressure that they both provide. They might not like defensively or offensively cover each other perfectly, but it's just the fact that you have two strong Pokemon that force them the same things that you're going to overload defenses.
Yeah, and I love seeing teams like that. Next up, Keegan decided to make the weakest team to Clefable that he possibly could and get Greninja paired up next to Baxcalibur, not Garchomp. This is number 1 Garchomp hater. I hate this pairing. I think Keegan's team sucks. Yeah, that's about it for me.
I'll talk about. I think the pairing's pretty good. I think John might be being a little facetious at the moment. I think the spikes that this thing offers, I think the momentum that it can grab, all the dual threat of it being Protean plus that Battle Bond win con in the random week where you're so worried about Scarf Gren or Specs Gren and it being, Protean turning into an ice type that you kind of sack something off to it before confirming an ability and then it gets a Quiver Dance, you might just lose. Like, you genuinely might just lose. So it's a good frog. It's a very, very good frog. Dear, did you say this is not a frog?
How old are you? What's your reading level? 4th grade?
It's a frog!
Wait. He might have said that when Lando was still on the screen, to be fair.
No, he said it with Greninja. But Gren does get gunshot. That's another thing. If you force in fairies, again, forcing like-minded checks. If we're forcing in fairies when our Greninja is out, we might catch it with a gunk shot, or we might just hit with a strong surf to where it's in range of Icicle Crash the next time it comes in. So,
yeah,
definitely a solid pairing. Don't just being a hater.
Yeah, no, I'm number one Keegan hater. I just want everybody to be aware no matter what pops up. I didn't even mean to round 1. No matter what pops up, and as long as Keegan and the Olympique Flygon picked it, I'm going to say something negative. So, our next pick is going to... This looks kind of familiar, Owen. Spectrier plus Sneasler. It sounds super familiar, actually. Have you seen this team before?
Okay, I won't lie to you. I suggested that last time. I completely did not know what Q drafted. So the fact that he got this core makes me look really smart. Or like I just looked at the doc and was like, he should get a Sneasler. I genuinely didn't know that he got this next. I don't know anybody who seems to be completely honest. I've got to learn them as you guys do. Or if I've played and prepped for them. But it's a great pairing. Again, offensive fighting, grabs momentum, and passive damage. We status things with Dire Claw. With just U-turning, I can poison touch you by clicking momentum button. That's not cool. That's not cool at all. So I really like this core a lot. I used it pretty well in WPF. Maybe my Spectre didn't do well, but Sneeze,
I wouldn't say pretty well. You use it all right.
My bad. But I definitely do like the core a lot, though, from Q. I think this is probably the best fighting type that you can pair with Spectrier, so this is a very smart pick.
Yeah, no, I like it a lot. And I know some leagues are doing like weird Dire Claw clauses. There's no weird Dire Claw clauses. Dire Claw can force a Covert Cloak, though, which is pretty cool. You can force an item slot with Sneasler, which I think is like very valuable. And I think Sneasler is one of the more valuable Pokemon. It was a 16-pointer, and I think it was one of the more valuable round 2 picks. I think this Pokemon pairs nicely with a lot of different things on the board. Speaking of Pokemon that pair nicely with certain things, we're actually going to get Glowking. Made it this far in round 2, a notable glue piece paired with Urshifu. I think this is a fantastic pairing. You just get Glowking for the fairies, and you have Urshifu to break everything else. You turn on the fairies into Glowking. You get a Future Sight up. I think this pairing, these two Pokemon together, is fantastic, and only Brody could mess this team up from here.
That's not very nice. But I do think that this is a great pairing. And another thing that we forgot to mention too with Glowking is it got buffed this generation. People who say that Glowking is not good this generation because they're strong dark types don't know how to play Pokemon. I'm talking about you, Jay Bear. Because this thing's incredible. Now it has access to Toxic and Toxic Spice, which didn't have before. But the main thing is Chilly Reception. I can now either Future Sight or I can Chilly Reception, get the hell out of there, get back into my Urshifu, and continue the cycle and momentum trap my opponent with slow momentum too, which is another clutch thing. Because if they make an aggressive play and they stand for some reason, who cares? You have regen, you get to switch out and then just come back in later and continuously just Chilly Reception until you get in the breakers that you want to get in. I really do like this pickup a lot for Brody. Glowking's one of my favorite mons in draft though, so obviously I'm going to think it's a great pickup here. You can't really go wrong with Glowking though.
Yeah, I think it's quite literally, it's the Draymond Green of Pokemon draft. Like, I'll say it. It's a good glue piece.
Don't say that.
It's a good glue
about
piece.
My friend Glowking.
I like Glowking a lot. I had a lot of fun with it.
Who's the LeBron? Who's the LeBron of draft league? Who's he dick riding then? Is it Urshifu?
It's Walking Wake, the next pick. Walking Wake, that's funny actually. Walking Wake is gonna go right next to Iron Valiant, which I think. I'll be honest with you guys, in the back of my mind, on my notes for the past month, I've had a Why Walking Wake Sucks video planned, and I've scripted it out, and I was ready to go. I was ready to talk about how bad Walking Wake is. I didn't script it, I lied. I don't know why I said that, but I was ready to go, and then it just all of a sudden got Flip Turn and Knockoff, and now it's like a really good Pokemon. I really debated putting it 17 points. I think Flip Turn and Knockoff were literally the two things that this Pokemon was missing. Now on its checks that do not have Storm Drain or Water Absorb, it can just Flip Turn on, and those that do have Storm Drain or Water Absorb, you can knock off a Resist Berry, an AV, leftovers, whatever the case may be. This Pokemon got immensely more powerful with the release of DLC.
Alright, sorry, I'm still recovering from you calling Slowking Draymond Green. I'll fight you in the stream. But I do actually like Walking Wake. do 100% agree in the sense that I think Knockoff and Flip Turn make this Pokemon very solid. Knockoff is more important than Flip Turn, in my opinion. The fact that you can force your own progress. The way I talk about it too is our BBR matchup last season during the regular season when you had Wake, I only had AV Aloe, but I had AV Aloe. You either had to double out or just do nothing damage and then, take advantage of my Aloe. But now, when you have this thing, you can either Flip Turn, go into a big threat, or you knock off my Water's AV or, whatever my item is, and then you just kill me next time. It's exactly that easy. If you had knockoff, I think that matchup completely flipped on its head. You would have cooked me with Specs Wake because you just click knockoff once and then you would just 2-hit kill me with Hydro Steam. Really, really solid Pokemon. It is sun dependent. I am a firm believer that if you do not have sun with Wake, you shouldn't have a Wake. So we'll see if he ends up picking up the sun.
Yeah, hopefully it does. I think it would pair well. Our next pick is going to be JV taking the thumbnail Pokemon Pheasantipity. Obviously, it's early for Pheasantipity. Everybody knows this, but he wanted the thumbnail Pokemon. He wanted to try it out. I think this bird is horrible. I know we have a lover of this bird in the chat, my mod SJ. I think he's a big fan. I think this Pokemon is trash. No, don't say that. This Pokemon is trash. Before we continue, though, by the way, guys, 68 viewers. Thank you guys so much. Leave a like. We only have 46 likes. Helps us out a ton. What do you think about Fez? Fez, that's not weird.
So it's weird. I think its tool set, its move pool is all solid. I think what holds it back is the base stats. If you actually look at this thing in practice and calcs what you wanted to check, maybe dragons, maybe, fighting types, things like that. The fact that it has that added poison typing without an immunity like something like a G-Weeze would, it doesn't typically check those Pokemon well. You're one Earthquake away from just not checking them anymore. On top of the very limited offensive output that you can get from this Pokemon, I do think it's very mediocre. I don't think it's bad, and I understand the thumbnail pick. Personally, with Pole, I think you want a very strong offensive poison to really punish those fairies, like a really strong offensive one. And I think at this point, I was going to say maybe you could have dropped one of the other trio, but they're both gone at this point. So I totally understand the thumbnail pick, and I actually don't think it's a bad pairing with Polt at all. It just might be a little bit early for it, given its tool set.
Yeah, definitely. But I understand, like we said, this is a content league, so it makes sense in that capacity. But next up, we're gonna have Ant picking Cinderace to pair with Monkey Dory. I assume the thought process here is double momentum. Cinderace can break steals for Monkey Dory, which is really cool. It has obviously things like Court Change and one of the best spammable moves in the game in Pyro Ball. It's a very good Pokemon, and I understand the pairing with Monkey Dory. It is unfortunate that this is probably gonna be your best Pokemon next to Monkey Dory, but I'm very excited to see how Ant builds around Monkey Dory with the rest of his team. I've just been a hater this round.
I think that the purpose of it on this team is going to be pretending Monkey Dory is a soccer ball and kicking him really far away. But I do think it's a very solid pairing. I actually really like the speed tier. I like the fact that it breaks through everything that Monkey Dory does not appreciate up to this point, and it's a great momentum grabber. I think all Ant needs is hazards, and it's actually a really solid starting core. And there's still some great things on the board when it comes to immediate power. So I think it's an okay pair, and again, there's always the upside of him treating Monkey Dory's head like a watermelon.
That would be extremely unfortunate. No, the Zamazintas are not allowed. Those Pokemon are broken in Draft League. The next Pokemon is going to be a great pairing with Chien-Pao. Actually, the original direction I went in my BBR Finals run with Chien-Pao before I traded for Goldenga, we're going to have Iron Treads with Chien-Pao. And I love this pairing for so many different reasons. I think Chien-Pao needs a good steal beside it, and having it as the number 2 option on a team is going to be fantastic. I think Treads is perfect next to Chien-Pao. The ability to momentum, one of the best spinners in the game. It has rocks. Obviously, it doesn't really care about the fairies that Chien-Pao really doesn't like. It can break steals for Chien-Pao. I just think these two are like a dream pair. I think these two Pokemon, it's a very good combo, and maybe the best two Pokemon that we've seen picked in conjunction with one another in this draft so far. I'm a big fan of this pairing.
Yeah, no, it's very good. Treads is so reliable at what it does. It's weird because it's definitely not as immediately threatening as a lot of the Paradox Pokemon, and especially Great Tusk. But there are matchups where you might pull up with a booster attack or booster speed Treads, or even just an offensive Choice Band variant, and there not be switch-ins. It's Excadrill, the stabs, right? So very solid. But also defensively, it's so good. It has such an incredible speed tier. It always gets up rocks. It always spins things away. It's a great knockoff spammer. And it's going to be a great Pokemon with something like Chien-Pao. The only thing that they share is going to be that fighting weakness. So Dell needs to acquire good fighting resist and good fighting switch in. But other than that, I think these Pokemon pair really well together offensively and defensively in a lot of instances.
Yeah. Next pick to pair with Jirachi is going to be Killaboom, rounding out round 2 with next. Did I say Jirachi? He's going to pick Jirachi with Darkrai.
Wow.
I like a good steal with Darkrai. Again, same reasoning as Chien-Pao. It helps break fairies, and on top of that, it resists the fairy types that Darkrai doesn't like. I don't know if there were anything. I think Goldengo was still on the board, and maybe that would have been better, but obviously it's just preference. Like, what would you prefer to use? I think Jirachi plus Darkrai, you can't go wrong with it. I think it's a pretty good core. It doesn't like blow me out of the water, but I think it's like a very good 1-2 punch.
Yeah, I like the momentum that Jirachi offers the team. Another thing to keep in mind, it's going to switch in on Fairies 2 very well. It's got a solid speed tier. Again, very versatile Pokemon. It can be that Scarfer in any matchup, but it can also be that incredible Spadef wall, with Wish and Protect and Thunder Wave and whatever you want it to do. It's a great rocker as well. So I think in the context of having Darkrai, I think this is a better pick than Goldengo. But the mascot pick would have been cool and still fit really well. But either way, it's fine.
Yeah, and yes, Darkrai is allowed. We had a vote in the league because somebody was nagging me to death about allowing Darkrai. So we had a vote, and it was 7-8 to allow Darkrai. So we got Darkrai in here, unfortunately, and we're gonna have to play it at some point. But that's gonna round out round 2. Please stop spamming Monkey Dory in my chat, Antonio. I am going to have to ban you permanently because you stole him from me and you're making me very sad. Owen, if I hear you typing, if you put Monkey Dory in the chat several times, I'm going to lose my...
Three times. It's 3 times. Every time it's 3 times.
Okay.
Can we get some Monkey Dories in the chat, please? Thank you.
To round out round 2, the entirety of round 2, in my opinion, again, I don't think, it's tough because I think the worst pick is going to be that Crawdaunt, but it's tough because Danny didn't know adaptability was going to work the way it did. So obviously, now knowing that, it's way too early. Crawdaunt is not very good. Even just as a Terra captain, I don't know how much I like it compared to some of the other stuff we allowed, because we allowed a lot of really, really cool stuff. And I don't think Crawdaunt makes the top even 10 of that list anymore, now that adaptability is not allowed. Other than that, I think my favorite pick, I think Chi-Yu going around 2 was pretty crazy. What do you think about the picks overall?
Yeah, I think the Chi-Yu pick was solid. Again, I think it's where he should about be going. I really like the Manaphy pick. I think that Pokemon is really good this generation. But I think the best pick of this round use Sneasler pick. I think it was a very, very solid pickup considering his round 1. I think they pair as perfectly as 2 Pokemon can together offensively. So I really think that was a smart one from him.
Yeah, 100%. Danny says, I stand by my Crawdaunt 1v1 me. Oh, I will. Do we play this season, Danny? I'm going to smash your Crawdaunt. I'm going to step on your Crawdaunt as if it was a bug. I'm going to literally destroy your Crawdaunt. By the way, wow, we have 50 likes. Thank you guys so much. We have 57 viewers and 50 likes. If you have not already, you're one of the 7 people. Don't feel left out, man. Go ahead and leave a like on the stream. It helps us out a ton. But yeah, I do think... I think that we got all of our thoughts out for this. So if you're ready, we'll go ahead and just jump into round 3.
Let's do it.
Round 3. You guys weren't supposed to see that. Whoops. Oh, wait. Oh, shoot. Nobody saw that. I just accidentally revealed the recaps. Whoops. Round 3, to start us off, is going to be Dragonite. Dragonite paired with Jirachi is obviously... No, it's not Terra Bug Crawdaunt. It's Terra Water and Dark. I don't know if I said that. Dragonite pairing with Jirachi and Darkrai is obviously a pretty good pairing. It's a flyer to help with the ground weakness, and obviously a steel type plus a good dragon type is going to be really good. I really like it. What do you think?
Yeah, it's also a Pokemon that pairs well with this team because I think Ice for Dragonite, resist Dragon for Dragonite, and resist Fairy for both of them. It's also neutral to fighting, and Dragonite is resistant to fighting. So these Pokemon it doesn't seem like it on paper, but they actually all pair together very, very solidly. I love D-Knight. I love his versatility. You think of Dragon Dance, Herder, Win Game, but Choice Band sets are great. Physically defensive and specially defensive sets with multi-scale and boots are also incredible. And also Special Dragonite with agility or even just special 3 attacks is also really, really good. This Pokemon is very versatile and one of my favorite Pokemon to use, even without Terra. So I think it's a good pickup here for Kahlua.
Yeah, I think Dragonite plus Jirachi Darkrai, I think it's a good core. I think it's hard to go wrong. And I think one thing to note that we haven't even mentioned yet is these teams fill out so much better than the previous drafts that we've had. You guys remember my 3rd best Pokemon in BBR was Glamora, and then after that it was Kilowattrel. These teams now with the post-home DLC, it's just the teams fill out so much better. Look at top 3 Darkrai with Jirachi and Dragonite, a very good team. and that's going to be consistent. Do not clip the Crawdon. Wait, what Crawdon comment? That I'm going to step on it like a bug? Go ahead. The next pick, I think Dell's winning the draft so far. I think Chien-Pao, Iron Shreds, and Slowking is insane. Chili Reception into Chien-Pao to get the defense boost, and on top of that, Slowking being a fighting resist for Chien-Pao and Iron Shreds. It's just like Dell. I don't know what he did, but he's drafting the best team in the league right now.
Yeah, no, I mean this is phenomenal. This is a great pick. It also shows how easy it is to draft our Chien-Pao. We have Chien-Pao that switch into its weaknesses, which we have with Tread Slowking. It's a very solid fighting resist, and then we find means of getting into it. We have Volt Switch and Chili Reception to get into it, and Dell's doing that job great. He just needs some hazards, and he's good. Like, this is a phenomenal start to the draft. I agree, this is probably the best team so far.
Yeah, Slowking is not bad. Shuckle, get out of here. Slowking is good.
Slowking's so good. No, and he got Scald Bag. Shut up. Slowking is so good. I don't have anything else to say. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, I think this is probably the best pair. And also, I think that this team so far just shows how far Dell has come since the beginning of this generation as just a player and a drafter.
Oh yeah, 100%. I agree.
I think I don't even remember. His first draft was like kind of mediocre, but like I think he's by far number one in this draft so far. I think it's not even. I don't even know who a close second would be, but I guess we'll see. It's certainly not Ant. I'll let you know that right now. Monkey Dory, Cinderace, and King Gambit. I don't know what this dude's doing. I don't know if he closed his eyes and just picked the Pokemon, but King Gambit in this slot. King Gambit's actually pretty cool here. It's obvious Ghost Resist, which helps a lot with Monkey Dory. It's a Steel type when there aren't very many Steel types. It gives a Rocker on a team that does not yet have a Rocker, and you get Knockout. Bad news, guys. Bad news, guys.
I'm getting word from the front office that Okie Dokie or King Gambit does not get knockoff. I was typing in Okie Dokie. That's why I said that, because I'm scheduling my draft analysis. I forgot.
Whoops, unfortunate. But yeah,
very solid Pokemon though. I like it a lot. It also again resists a lot of contacts. Now I will say the move Earthquake makes Ant shiver in his boots. He is terrified of the ground shaking. So he needs to get a ground resist immediately, because his entire team drops to 1. You just put a scarf in that Iron Treads that Dell has, and the game is over. So definitely hope he grabs one of those guys soon.
Yeah, and I mean, like we said, I mean, this team looks underwhelming compared to the rest right now because Ant doesn't know how to draft and took Monkey Dory round 1 just because he wanted me to have a bad day, because that's how good of a friend my good pal Antonio is to me. So thank you so much, Ant.
Like, he wasn't going to do the same thing and draft Monkey Dory round 1.
No, I was going to take Monkey. If I had the first overall pick, I was going to take Darkrai if I had the first overall pick. But if I had the second overall pick, I was going to take Monkey Dory for sure. Next up, we're going to see Q pair Zarude with Dragapult and Pheasantipity. A good dark type is obviously a must with Dragapult, and this Pokemon is also a good ground resist when you have Pheasantipity, which is going to be almost a completely unique type in Fairy and Poison, only shared by Galar Weezing. I like Zarude on this. It also fills the 105 speed tier, which isn't necessarily needed with Pheasantipity being 99, but I'm not sure how much Pheasantipity is going to be respected with that speed tier. So I like Zarude filling a lot of different roles here. I think it also got knockoff, did it not?
It did, which is really good for Zarude. I loved it.
Yeah.
Believer. I think that Pokemon is incredible. And the fact that it has knockoff now, again, force its own progress to force items off of Pokemon. And again, might force in those fairy types that Pult doesn't like. You can knock them off. You're in a good spot. It's also great ghost resist. Mwah. Beautiful. Love this Pokemon.
Yeah, beautiful pairing. And yeah, it should have came before the Pheasantipity, but JV, like we said, this is a content league. JV does it for the content. What?
Yeah, and it worked out. He ended up getting it anyway, so.
Yeah, because Ant doesn't know how to draft, so he took King Gambit instead, I guess. I don't really know. Dude forgot that he didn't get knockoff. And also did not realize that he lost to the move Earthquake.
He'll figure it out. King Gambit's still really good.
So I'm saying all of this, I don't even know what Ant's team ends up being, so I don't know if he actually does patch this up or not.
It would be really bad if and you've been shooting on him the whole time.
Next up, we're going to see a Pokemon that, in my opinion, I have no idea how I made it this far in the draft. Although I am a big believer in this Pokemon, we have Goldengo round 3, and I think Star's giving Dell a run for his money as far as the top 3 picks go. Valiant, Wake, and Goldengo. These Pokemon pair really well together. Goldengo being one of the best checks to Iron Valiant in all of Draft League. You can just run Kasib or Colbur for the knockoff or the Shadow Ball, and you'll be set. whatever you think they're going to run. I think Goldingo pairing with these two is fantastic. Obviously, Goldingo, it does so many different things. It can't be status. It's very good offensive typing with Ghost and Steel, and that is also one of the best, if not the best, defensive typing in the game. There's probably other better ones, but Goldingo paired with these Pokemon, I love it. It breaks so many different things, and I think that this is I don't know. I would still probably rank Dell's team a little higher, but I think this team is still probably the second best team in the draft so far.
Oh yeah, I think it's very solid. I do like the Goldingo pick a lot. I think it pairs really well with Valiant. It's a bit tough right now. He's lacking in a few very common roles. His offense is crazy. It's just going to be a matter of how he passes out rocks and resists and things like that. I think he has a great start. Something he has to keep in mind is with a team like this, you really want that Torkoal option, so he's gonna have to look into that soon, in my opinion, to secure that, because Sun's a very viable strat for a lot of teams. That's kind of the risk with taking Wake, is if you have a Paradox Mon, you can kind of justify having Sun almost, or a past Paradox Mon.
And don't forget Ninetales this generation as well, or this DLC.
Ninetales, yeah, so there's two. I totally forgot about that. And Ninetales got Healing Wish, which I actually think would be a really valuable tool for a team like this with Mons like Valiant and Wake that want to come in and break for themselves to win later. But yeah, still a really solid offensive combination.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's really cool for Ninetales. Next up, coming in for Brody's pick. So there was a trade that happened during the draft. Originally, Brody selected Slitherwing, but then the move Earthquake literally made him tremble to his core. So he decided to trade it for Thundurus Therian. I'm not going to say who he traded it with, because we obviously have not seen Iron Moth go off of the board yet, but originally this was Iron Moth. So Thundurus paired with this team, the speed tier is a little bit clunky next to Urshifu 10197. There's not that much discrepancy between the two, but Thundurus does something that Urshifu is not always able to do, and that's break waters. Something like the specific Azumarill matchup, I guess Thundurus helps with a lot, and it also gives him another great special breaker. I like Thundurus with this just because of the momentum as well. I think Thundurus overall is a pretty solid pick here.
Oh yeah, I think it's just a great Pokemon. It's a great breaker. I think the important thing with Urshifu, get in the setup sweeper. It's a team that wants Urshifu to get in the breaker, that gets in Urshifu, that gets in the breaker, that gets in Urshifu. So definitely really solid here. I actually like this pickup a lot, for sure. So it's a good one for Brody.
Yeah, no, I like it a lot. I think he still definitely needs a couple of different roles, like a good steel type and some things like that, but I think it's a good start. Next up, Q is going to pair Zapdos with Spectrier and Sneasler, and I'll be honest, this is not a team that at this point in the draft that I am looking at like, yes, I want to play this team. This team is horrifying with these top 3 picks. Another momentum Pokemon into Spectrier is really good. Obviously, Zapdos did not retain Defog, which is a little bad, but it's still a very good defensive piece, great defensive typing. It has Roost. Obviously, with Boots now, it's just a very good Pokemon in general. Dual Stab is fantastic. You just got to land your Hurricanes, and I think all Q needs now is some good hazards and some good removal, and his team is in a very good direction.
Yeah, no, again, I'm a big Zapdos lover. I think it's great resistance wise for this team, so really solid pickup here for Q.
Yeah, no, I like it a lot, and good Scarf user. Thank you, SJ. SJ is saying that for those of you that do not know, because he beat me in JJDL semifinals with a Scarf Zapdos, so shout out to you, SJ, for winning that. Nice GFX. Shout out to odds. No, actually, I made all of this GFX. I am a GFX guy.
John
Let's
Jr.
go.
He's the graphics guy, kinda.
Yeah, I just don't do it very often because I now have a child. Oh, yo, is that Keegan? Keegan, I cannot wait to shit on your pick in a couple of seconds. Oh my gosh.
While you've been gone. Don't worry, Keegan. He's been doing it the whole time.
I cannot wait for this. We might. So it's currently 90 seconds per pick. We might make it go less. I don't know. Exclamation point Flygon in the chat for Keegan. All right, boys, Keegan's here, so I get to talk about how bad his team is right now. Keegan decided that he wanted to lose to Clefable as hard as a singular human possibly could. He now has 1, 2, 3 Pokemon weak to Fairy, picking up Iron Hands. It's such a... I don't know what Keegan's doing. I don't know if he just forgot that the type Fairy existed. Is this dude playing in Gen 5? I'm not entirely sure, but here he is picking another Pokemon that helps him lose to Clefable.
So, I would like to point out that Clefable is your only check to all of these Pokemon.
Goodbye.
So Clefable has to beat all 3. So, but
goodbye.
But it's a solid pickup in general. Yes, he is a very big fairy weakness, but that is patchable. There's a lot of fairies just in the game. It's not the best offensive type in the game. It's the best defensive type in the game, or one of them. And Iron Hands is Jesus. His Mon doesn't die to one attack. And it's also very anti-meta. Checks a lot of the top tier physical offense. And it really is a Pokemon that can be tailored to beat whatever you want it to beat. Even Pokemon that traditionally beat it, your Garchomp, your Landorus, you can very much so tailor an Iron Hands to beat them 1v1 pretty darn easily. I love weakness policy Iron Hands. I think it's great with the punching glove. It's phenomenal with an AV, a Rocky Helmet leftovers. It Swords Dances up or grabs momentum with Volt Switch and sits there with an AV. I'm a big Iron Hands believer. I know that Keegan is as well, and Kaz, who was probably helping him draft. I actually don't know if Kaz
let's just cut the shit. Let's cut the crap now. Kaz drafted for him. We know Keegan isn't capable.
We're the biggest Kaz haters in the world is what I'm hearing.
So next up, we're gonna have a pick that I actually love from Nate. Remember, Iron Moth was gone at this point in the draft, and Nate said that originally he did want Iron Moth, but he is going to end up taking Ogerpon. And we have a rule for Ogerpon in this draft, very similar in the past, if you've ever watched BBL, to the Arceus rule, where once one is gone, they are all gone. So this is the only Ogerpon that will be drafted, and I'm shocked it lasted till round 3. We're going to see Ogerpon Hearthstone, Ogerpon Fire go to Nate, and I think this rounds out Nate's team very well. It breaks the waters and the grasses that up to this point Nate doesn't really like. It keeps up the momentum trend. It gives him spikes, and it gives him another form of setup offense. I think at this point in the draft, the only thing Nate needs to worry about is getting some good special breakers. Other than that, he's got, I think, a really good start here.
Oh yeah, I think this Pokemon's really fun looking, man. I've seen this thing with Terra be ungodly broken. And I think it should be Terra banned like we have it here, obviously. Most things at the upper end are Terra banned. But the fire one in general, Mold Breaker is a great ability. Fire plus fighting plus grass is a great combination. It can Swords Dance, it can spike, which I just learned like 2 days ago that it spikes for some reason. But it also U-turns, very, very solid support move pool on top of being really strong offensively. The thing that sucks about this Pokemon is going to be the item lock, because that means not only are you not allowed to run like Bandit, Life Orb, whatever you want to run, you can't run Boots. So there's a big rock weakness on this Pokemon, and that's going to be one of the main ways of dealing with it, I think, is offensively pressuring it and keeping up hazards. But offensively, it's incredible, and there's 2 great momentum grabbers that get it in very easily on grasses and water types, which it might not want to switch in too hard, but if it gets that free switch in, it's going to kill something. So this team, I think, actually functions more so as an Ogerpon team more than it does as a Palafin team right now.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see what spinner he gets. Speaking of spinners, one of the few top tier spinners that doesn't really count as a spinner is going to go ahead and get picked up off the board. Quaquaval. Many viewers of my channel might know that I think this Pokemon is Donkey Dick. Excuse me, I couldn't even say it because it disgusts me. So, it disgusts me so bad. This Pokemon's bad. It got access to knockoff and flip turn, which makes it a little bit better. I don't know. I don't like this Pokemon. Owen got a spinner. He had an 85 speed tier. Don't put it in the chat, man. What's going on?
Hey, don't dicks in the chat.
he got Quaquaval is cool, but he's not good, and that's my sentence.
I like this Pokemon. I think it's great. I know John's, but it's. And I think it's bad when you think of it in the. It can spin. It's very solid at it, but I think this is the best snowball Pokemon in the game. You fuck up just the tiniest bit, this thing will sweep you with Aqua Step plus Moxie. It just will. And I think a Pokemon that really pairs well with it is going to be Garchomp. It sets up hazards for Garchomp, and Garchomp is forcing in water resist in grass types because they're also ground resist. So if we're chipping those things down in the range of Ice Spinner or Brave Bird, this Pokemon is very likely to win. This Pokemon is crazy, crazy good.
He needs to patch that fairy weakness, though, very soon. But next up, your Portland Nightshaders. Let's go, baby. Let's get some Chien-Pogs in chat. We're going to take Heatran, which I was shocked to make it to me round 3. To keep it short and simple, because obviously I'm going to have a draft analysis where I go more in depth. I really like a good steel type next to Clefable and Great Tusk, and this steel type can break other steel types, which I think is great for the likes of Clefable. It obviously resists poison, which Clefable doesn't like. It synergizes very well with my other 3 Pokemon, and at this point, I'm building an Oras team. We have Mega Donphan, we have Clefable, and we have Heatran. We are just playing Gen 6 OU, where Mega Donphan was an absolute staple during that generation. And at this point, all Pokemon must have rocks as well, so to be on the team.
Yeah, I mean, Heatran Clef is one of the best. I absolutely love these 2 together. You're just a ground resist away from like being completely covered in all ends of the spectrum with something like Heatran. I think it's still the best steal in the format. Personally, I love Heatran, especially for its price point. Whether it be offensive like choice sets, life orb sets, or more than likely stall breaking sets with Magma Storm and Taunt and Earth Power and Flash Cannon, all those things. It's one of the most reliable rockers in the game. You have 3 rockers, like you said. So now your Great Tusk isn't forcing that rocking roll. Clef can run it, or more than likely Heatran, because Heatran usually always has the slots to get up rocks. Or something like Clef and Great Tusk might not always want to. I really like this pick a lot. This is definitely one of my favorites in the round.
Wow, thank you. That means so much, Owen, coming from the OG Albina, complimenting my Heatran pick. Next up, we're not sure how this made it this late, I'll be honest. Enamorus made it this late, paired with Roaring Moon and Manaphy. This is a very scary Pokemon. Roaring Moon plus a good fairy in general is very good, and Enamorus is top 3 fairy in the format at least. Very good Pokemon, very good coverage. I just wish it got U-turn. If it got U-turn on this team, it would just be absolutely insane. But the pairing,
any kind of momentum,
Baton Pass too, I agree. But the pairing of Roaring Moon plus Enamorus, I think, is very, very good. He's just going to need to get something that reliably breaks steals, and I think KJ's got a really good team.
Yeah, no, I really like it a lot so far. I think Moon plus I think that he just needs, I think a solid ground is too. He does struggle with some steals, but Manaphy also bullies most steals too. It doesn't necessarily hit them super effectively, but it switches in on them, it sets up on them, or it skull birds them, or just nukes through them over time. So I like this team a lot so far. Very, very offensive. This is very hyper offense-esque so far. But it's Gen 9, baby. Balance is bad anyways. Just click buttons.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't go that far with my balance.
You click
team.
Offense buttons. Yeah. You gotta be careful. You're gonna get cooked by this top 3. I won't lie.
Yeah. No, Enamorus is probably the Pokemon, in my opinion. My entire team has the worst matchup against. So even at the end of the draft. So I really hope I don't play KJ. I actually don't know off the top of my head. But the next pick is going to be another fairy. Grab your fairy soon because they're all going very fast. Danny is going to go ahead and grab Sylveon paired with Tornadus and Crawdaunt. We're going to see Sylveon go. Obviously, Sylveon's a fairy that's very reliable. You know what it does. It's a Wish Passer. It has Baton Pass. Hyper Voice with Pixelate is obviously very strong. There are just simply not that many fairies left. So I personally think that Danny just wanted to value a lot of fairies, or a fairy earlier rather than later. Were there better Pokemon in this slot? Maybe. But if he took something else, he just simply might have not gotten a fairy. So I don't necessarily hate this pick.
Yeah, no, I think that Sylveon is just a safe pick in general. Dark Spam is generation, and having one of the best, Dark Spam switch-ins is going to be really solid. Obviously, you're more so a Spadef wall, but physically defensive Sylveons are going to check those physically offensive Dark types more times than not, and they're going, unless your name's Chien-Pao, then you're not. But other than that, obviously, you're going to be able to check those well and still be a good Spadef wall. You can Wish, you can Baton Pass, you can even use this as a means to get in Crawdaunt, get it healthy so it can click a button again. I think it's a solid pick. It doesn't necessarily go perfectly with his team, but it definitely is not bad at all with his team, and it's a good pick for down the road because, like you said, this wasn't coming back to him potentially.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, hopefully he gets a good second round, because in my opinion, I don't think Terra Crawdaunt, like we said, not one of the best Terra. Obviously, he had no idea, and I don't think Sylveon's a number 2 option, so I'm excited to see what number 2 option he ends up getting. Speaking of Pokemon that go too early, we're going to see you take Crocodile.
This is never too early. This is never too early. This one's so good.
I love Crocodile. I'm a big Crocodile believer. Did he get knockoff back, or did he still have it?
He did get knockoff back.
He got knockoff back.
You could Daniel bet I wouldn't draft round 3 Crunch.
Yeah. Crocodile is awesome. This Pokemon is such a reliable Pokemon. You know what you're getting. Intimidate, such a good ability on it. It's got great natural bulk. Ground Dark is great typing both offensively and defensively. It's a reliable rocker. It has great utility with things like Taunt and an amazing speed tier to be both offensive and defensive with 92 base speed. What is the fit on your team? I wanted to ask you that during the draft, but I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah. So I had it all planned out exactly what I was going to say in my draft now. Right now, in general, great Pokemon, right? It is, I think it pairs really well with Okidogi in the sense that Okidogi actually switches in on the things that Crocodile doesn't like, and Croc switches in on things that Okidogi doesn't like. Oki's going to switch in on fairies decently, or at least threaten them offensively, and it's going to switch in on opposing grasses and things like that. whereas something like Crocodile is going to really bully and beat down fighting resist in particular. It's going to bully and beat down opposing psychic types that might want to switch in on my dual stabs. So I think they pair together really well. I wanted to grab a very reliable rocker, and I want to knock off items. I want to knock off assault vests. I want to knock off rocky helmets. I want to knock off leftovers so my top two can do better and thrive and do well. And again, having reliable rocks is really important. I saw a lot of ground types going, and I saw a lot of rocks going, and I really wanted to secure Crook here because I think it fits really, really well with the squad, depending on what we have. So I'm definitely here for Big Crook.
It feels so many roles. No, I like the Crook pick. I was just busting your chops a little bit. I like Crook. The next pick is going to be a Pokemon that could Terra. Unfortunately, we do not see a Terra. I really wanted to see this Pokemon Terra this season, and it was one of the Pokemon that I was thinking about grabbing to Terra before Heatran. I think it's one of the best Pokemon on the board for its value. We have Empoleon, who was 12 points. It got obviously competitive instead of defiant, and it also got Flip Turn, which is just fantastic. I think Empoleon is such a good Pokemon. It has so much utility. We definitely underpriced it, but again, it was one of those Pokemon. It's like, let's let it Terra for the content. I think Empoleon is crazy. I am, like I said, sad we don't get to see it Terra, but with Roost, Flip Turn, and obviously competitive, I think this Pokemon is going to be a menace in Draft League and very customizable.
I think the competitive aspect is really cool for a team like this. I already talked about two of the best spikers in the game. Now you don't get to defog them. So depending on if you get a good spin blocker later, hazards are going to be up to stay. You just don't remove them very well. Unless you have a defogger that bullies Empoleon, which I don't think those exist in this generation. It's going to be really annoying to switch into +2 Scalds. Even if it's a Spadef or a Fizdef Empoleon with no investment, having to switch into +2 attacks for no reason is just not fun to deal with, and it's going to be really hard to remove hazards in that case. So I think that's really cool. Again, more momentum in another Pokemon just like Crook that fills so many different roles.
Yeah, no, I think Empoleon is awesome. And then to round out our draft, everybody at this point in the draft, once Emil put this pick in, we started sweating profusely because Emil picked Mew, and Mew with Infernape and Ursaluna Blood Moon works very well together. Base 100 speed tier, bulky psychic next to Infernape is really good. It gives him a lot of hazard options and it gives him momentum. Obviously, Mew is not the best it's ever been, but it's still a very good glue piece type of Pokemon. And Emil is choosing a real team, and nobody wants to see that because Emil almost made playoffs, or Emil made semifinals with a Lechonk, and here he is.
I was gonna say,
with
he
a
didn't
real
almost
team.
make playoffs. He made it farther than me and you, bro. Or no, he made farther than me. You made fine.
Yeah. But no, like Emil has a real team, and it's very like I don't want to play Emil. I'll be completely honest.
It's scary because it's Emil drafting and using all of his points, right? Drafting high tier Pokemon, but they're also Emil Pokemon. They're very customizable. You know, something like Mew, Emil is going to think of the weirdest Bug Buzz, Scald, Swords Dance, Drain Punch set of all time for some reason. He's going to be like, it wins. Give it an expert belt. Like, he's going to do that, and he's going to run a really weird Infernape, and he's going to run physically offensive Swords Dance, Ursaluna Blood Moon, because he can. He's going to say, they're going to have AV on this thing, and I'm going to beat it. Like, Emil is a very, very talented mind when it comes to Draft League and approaching matchups in unconventional ways in order to find a win. And these Pokemon are perfectly tailored to do so.
Yeah, and I think Emil is the perfect person to take advantage of something like Mew in a format like this. The round recap. Let's go ahead and go over some Pokemon real quick. I'm going to give my thoughts real quick, and then I'm going to go refill my water and let you get your piece in.
Oh, dude, I was just about to ask. I was going to message you saying, dude, I have to pee so bad.
No, go ahead. I'll talk, and then whenever you get back, you can talk about the first pick. How about that?
All
right. Now that Owen's gone, everybody let me know how bad you think his team is in the chat right now. Let me know what you think about how bad Okidogi, Crocodile, and Iron Bundle is together. As far as this round goes, I think the best pick probably goes to Dell. I think Slowking paired with Chien-Pao as well as Iron Treads is just really good and really hard to beat. Second and third, in my opinion, are going to be the Goldango pick for Star. I really like Valiant plus Wake and Goldango. I think there's obviously some holes in that team that he needs to fill, but I think that is just one of the best teams and one of the best picks in this round. And then I think Ogerpont Fire is fantastic, especially next to Palafin as well as Lando. I think the only thing Nate needs to really worry about at this point is one, removal. Removal is going to be very, very tough. But again, two, he's going to need some special breakers sooner rather than later because obviously they're kind of hard to come by in this deck. So Star has the best team so far. Star has a really good team for sure. Bundle is good, Doki's okay, but round 2 is early, 100%. Crook is bad. Oh no, you think Crook is bad? I love Crocodile. I think it's a very good Pokemon. Obviously, I also think that Portland Nightshaders guy who picked Heatran, I think that is one of the best picks, in my opinion. So if anybody has any questions right now, let me know before Owen gets back and I will answer them the best that I can. We are also going to start moving faster with these slides because obviously we've been streaming for an hour and a half. We're only 3 rounds deep. I have it set up to auto play these slides, so now we're moving. We were 2 minutes in the first round per slide. We were 1.5 minutes in the second round. We're now 60 seconds in round 4, 5, and 6, and then 45 seconds onward. So if you guys have any questions, I'll answer right now before we move on and we start picking up the pace a little bit. We start getting towards the finish line here. Is there any way to get access to the doc for the tier list? I'm going to go ahead and give the fan doc after the stream. We're going to post it in the GBU Discord, which, by the way, if you guys have not already, please go down in the description below and join the GBU Discord. It's an awesome community, man, that we're trying to build here. It's going to be so fun to watch this season. You can help partake in pick'ems and watch along streams that I'm going to be doing every single Sunday on this channel, aside from tomorrow, because tomorrow I'm doing the power ranking streams at 11 a.m. EST. Did Vivian get taken? Let me look. No. No, Vivian did not get taken. I'm a big time Crook fan. I like Crook a lot. I have no opinion on Crook because I've never used it, but it seems good on paper. Crook is a Pokemon that just fills a lot of roles. I really like it a lot. And also, by the way, guys, if you have not already, be sure to leave a like on the stream. We're currently at 59 likes, which is a ridiculous amount of likes. And we're also at 1,986 subscribers. We are so close to 2,000. If you guys could just go ahead, leave a subscription, tell your friends, double check, make sure you subscribe. It would help me out a ton. All right, Owen's back. I'm gonna get a water. Do you want to talk about the round week? Nah, I'm just gonna throw you into round 3 or round 4.
You're throwing me in round 4. Okay.
Ready, go.
I don't know when the change.
Yep. Ready, go. I'll probably only be gone for 1 pick. It's Amos's pick right now, Hammerot.
Hammerot, Mr. Amos Spikes, which I actually really like with this. Up to this point, he does have the Mew, which can set up spikes, but Ursula Blood Moon does not get it, neither does Infernape, so that's going to be really solid for like Infernape that's coming in and out. Like Mew that wants to, whittle things down or even set up and sweep itself, it's going to appreciate those hazard damage. Same thing with Blood Moon. Not a lot of things are going to switch in on that Blood Moon move, whatever it's called, after spikes are up. So I definitely think this is a solid pickup and pairing for this team. I like this Pokemon a lot. I think it's debatably 2 Pokemon. So the fact that he got it so late, I think is very, very valuable and very, very solid. Not only does it set up spikes by attacking with a typing that has no immunities, which is the big thing, the really important thing, right? It also is really solid defensively, has 2 forms of priority in Aqua Jet and Sucker Punch. It can flip, turn around. It can even Swords Dance and win the game if you really need it to with all of that priority. Has Sacred Sword as well as coverage. There's X-Scissor for sharpness boosted moves. Overall, just an incredible Pokemon. I'm definitely a really, really big Hammerot fan, and I think it's a really solid start that he has. Now, I don't have anything else to say about Samurott, and that's why we have 2 people. So, chat. I'm gonna need you guys. We have to monkey Dory in the chat. I need 3 of them exactly as I'm typing it in. Just like so. Looks like Cyclozar is up. We'll talk about it. But in the chat, everybody go. Lars with the next pick. Again, grabbing some removal of his own sword. And I think it's really, really solid to have removal that's solid spin on a team like this. We don't want to defog away our own hazards. Glamora can spin with Mortal Sin. It's blocked by steel types. But Cyclozar gives us another option. It's only blocked by Ghost, which this team actually deals with really, really well. So I think this is a solid pickup for Lars here. Great speed tier, best ability in the game. Definitely a really solid. Hey, John, welcome back.
I was gonna sit here. I didn't know if you got the stream open. I was gonna sit here and let you just talk until you were like, "When is John?"
I do, and that's
back?
why I was talking about Cyclozar because you definitely took more than.
I know. No, I got back like at the beginning of when Cyclozar popped up. But yeah, Cyclozar is cool on Lars' team. It's a good rapid spinner. Hammerot is broken on Amos's team. We now have Thundurus on Owen's team with Iron Bundle, Okidogi. Stop spamming Monkey Dory in my chat. What are you guys doing? Stop it. I'm gonna ban all of you. I'm gonna kick your heads like Cinderace is gonna kick Monkey Dory's head. Like a soccer ball. Iron Bundle, Okidogi, Crocodile, Thundurus. Thundurus fills a nice speed tier. It breaks waters, which is nice, and it gives you a special breaker on top of Iron Bundle, which is awesome. I hear you typing, Owen. If you put Monkey Dory in the chat, I'm going to just start banning people.
Okay, but I didn't.
Okay. All right. All right.
But I didn't. I like Thundurus a lot too because it's tier. I think it's really fun.
It doesn't really matter what you think about
Thundurus. And it helps with waters a lot.
It doesn't really matter. I'll be honest. Next up, anyway, Como on Danny's team. Komao with Turin and Crawdont and Sylveon. I think Komao is cool. I think he's a cool guy. He didn't get knockoff, right?
No, he did not. I'm pretty sure he didn't.
That would have been really cool. Instead, we have the Komao that we all know. We have Klinger's Soul. It has access to Throat Spray. It's a rocker. It's a good fighting type next to Tornado's Therian, which is obviously really good to help alleviate pressure off of steals, which this team desperately needed. So I think Komao is a pretty solid round 4 pick up to this point. I think it's one of the better Pokemon you could probably take in round 4.
Yeah, I think the big thing with Komao is versatility. Like you said, it does so many things, but it does them so well. Whether it be setup, breaking, sword stance, DD. It could rock polish in the past and autotomize. It doesn't get those moves anymore because one of them doesn't exist and one of them isn't on anything but rocks now. But it sets up stealth rocks, right? It can Klinger Soul and get that Omni boost in certain matchups. It can be special, physical, mix, do so many different things so well. Iron Defense Body Press, another setup option that it has technically, as well as being a great physically defensive wall. Provided he gets a good Fairy Resist later, this thing's going to be really solid with Sylveon. I think Sylveon, good Steel type Komao is about as good as you can get when it comes to a, Dragon Fairy Steel core if you're drafting via cores. Speaking of Steel types,
we have another Iron Defense Body Press Pokemon. We have Corviknight. Corviknight is one of the premier defoggers, and I'm shocked it lasted till round 4. It can be a little bit passive in this dex for sure, but it has momentum on a team that really, really likes momentum. It defogs on a team that really, really needed defog, and it's a good Fairy Resist on a team that needed a good Fairy Resist. I think it's a perfect fit. I can't really say anything bad about it here.
Yeah, I think it fits the team well. I'm after using it this last season at BBR, I'm a big Corviknight hater. I think, at least in the way we used to use it. Back in Gen 8, you use it would roost and stall everything out and slowly get U-turns out and gain momentum. Now with only 8 roosts, 1, it either gets overwhelmed to where it can't roost consistently, or 2, this is such a fast-paced metagame that you can't take the turn to roost. You need to U-turn out and gain momentum. I think Corviknight is one of the best pivots in the game because of that. I do think it's a bit of a steep price pool for a U-turn bot, a slower U-turn bot that isn't recovering very often, but it fits his team really well, especially with Moon.
Yeah, I agree. Next up, Portland Nightshares, baby. We're going to get Rotom Wash. I didn't expect to take Rotom Wash here because I didn't expect it to still be here. So we're going to get a kind of steeply priced Rotom Wash similar to the Corviknight because it allows things like Pain Split and Defog, but Rotom Wash is still very good. I think, in my opinion, it's the best lead in the game. I think there's no matchup you can go wrong leading Rotom Wash. The combination of Water plus Electric Stab is almost impossible to switch into unless you're a Grass type, in which you get Volt switched on, and I'm going to get into my Heatran. So the momentum on this specific team is very, very nice. It's also a Levitate user paired next to Heatran, which I think is really, really nice and something that obviously I desperately needed. Oh, the slides are going fast, so how about you talk about Obo's Rabambi?
I don't like Rabambi. I'm not a big webs guy, right? I think that it's in generations like 8 and 9 where boots exist, all it does is force prep. The Pokemon that do not want to be hit by webs don't even need to have defog or rapid spin to happen, which they can still, right? But they just need to wear a pair of shoes. And there's nothing spin blocking on this team too, so spin is still a very viable option. There's nothing defog deterrent on this team, and Rabambi is going to lose to a lot of defoggers, being that they're typically flying types. I'm not big on a Pokemon like this unless it's around 8 or 9, you have extra points, you're like, I like the webs aspect. I think this was very early. I love the start of Obo's team, but I'm not a big fan of the Rabambi pick personally. I think that webs are a bit of a trap in a generation like this.
I think it's still pretty valuable on a team that has Garchomp and Chi-Yu. At least, like you said, it forces prep on a team that maybe, because Garchomp is your only setter, you don't force boots because maybe things don't really fear you. But I like Rabambi on that team. Next up, we're going to have Nate. He is going to take a Defogger, which is something that his team desperately needed, and another special attacker in Weezing Galar, as well as a Fairy type. Weezing Galar is another one of those glue Pokemon that fills so many roles. It's a very good typing in both Fairy and Poison, and it kept Defog for whatever reason. So here it is, paired with his team that needed a Defogger.
All right. What's next up? I can't tell.
Oh, wait, it's not gone yet. I was going to let you say a little bit about Weezing. Are we just going to do one slide a piece now?
Oh, it's Weezing. Okay, no, you're good. You're good. I thought that Weezing again, not super. I think it saps the momentum big time. It does give him important resists to a team, which is going to be very solid. It also gives him another ground immunity, which is never a bad thing to have ground immunities. But still a very solid Pokemon, spreads status and can be very annoying against a lot of teams. And it's a very good, like, I need to check something defensively. It's always going to do so. And how many points was it this season?
like 12 or something, I think.
So it's 11, a bit of a steep price point for a Pokemon that does what it does at this point. I love the Start to Nate's team. This one might be a little bit meh.
Yeah, I don't know. I like this defogger. But next up, Keegan just does not. This man is in Gen 5. He does not know that fairies exist. He is stacking if anybody has a Dachshund, a Carbink, this dude is going to get swept by that Pokemon. He's going to pick Ting Lu. I like to have the support on the team, but he just doesn't understand the fairy types exist this generation.
You're actually right. He is legitimately 4 Fairy Week mods. At last round, I was like, it's round 3, it's okay. He's very Fairy Weak right now. We're getting to the point in the draft where there's not a lot of Fairy. So he does need that soon. Other than that, it is a solid pick. It's a great spiker. It frees up Gren a lot, which I like for this team because I think people kind of lean on Gren as a spike spot too often. It's very good offensively still. And the fact that Ting Lu is getting spikes for it is going to be solid. It also gives him a rocker, which he didn't have at this point. It's kind of a necessary evil. It does what he needs for his team, but it's also weak to Fairy. We just need Broski to get a resist. That's it. Protein Gongshot Greninja, that will make him a Fairy resist. But that's still a Greninja, so is it a Fairy resist?
No. Our next pick is going to be Q, just taking scary Pokemon after scary Pokemon. He takes Mamoswine, which is going to get him, obviously, not a Volt Absorb Pokemon, a Ground Pokemon, which obviously is immune to electric moves. Mamoswine is very good. It's the same as it always has been, but it has Trailblaze now, which is really cool. I think it makes Mamoswine better for sure. Other people don't necessarily think so. I like Mamoswine on this team.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great Pokemon. Again, reliable rocker, which he didn't have to this point. He has a... And a Pokemon that I think it fits very well with is going to be Zapdos. I think they both complement each other. Mamoswine is going to really appreciate breaking through, and Mamoswine is going to be checked by a lot of Pokemon that what the hell, Owen? Zapdos goes crazy against. So I like this pick a lot.
You've lost your talking privileges. You said Mabostiff.
Okay, I'm also multitasking and helping in class server, and we have a Mastiff, which is basically Mabostiff.
That is dumb. Don't draft that. We have Zoro Kisui now for Brody. Oops, I actually left Iron Moth on the bottom of the slide. He doesn't have Iron Moth. He has Thunderous Therian. Whoops, that's fine. I made all of these slides in like a couple days. Zoro Kisui, I think I don't know. I don't like to pick on Brody's team. I'll be honest. It doesn't feel like pairing it with Urshifu is kind of cool, but in general, I don't know. It feels like there could have been a better pick here to fill more roles.
Yeah, so I think in a lead scenario, it fits really well in his team. Something that I think is important to keep in mind is the mons he wants to try disguise Zoroark as are going to be a Pokemon that resists Stealth Rock and a Pokemon that is weak to Stealth Rock. And then you have Zoroark, which is going to be neutral to rocks. That means once hazards go up, once rocks go up, unless they're all rocking boots, it is going to be very telling which Pokemon it is when it comes to the hazards being up. And I think that's a really important thing to think about when you're drafting these disguised Pokemon, because I think it is actually pretty cool with something like an Urshifu, in the sense that your one weakness is 4 times resisted by Urshifu, and Urshifu might force in, a fairy type, that monster come and check it, and you hit it with a Specs Hyper Voice or Shadow Ball. It's broken for Urshifu, but it's really only going to work early on. Yeah.
Next up, we're going to see Star pair Gliscor with his current team. It gives him a good speed tier. It gives him hazards. Gliscor sucks. This Pokemon's not good. I'm making a whole video on it for Tuesday, but I think Gliscor is completely trash. I think this Pokemon's awful.
I think it's definitely worse. It's the worst. Even though there's no hidden power in the game anymore, it doesn't have roost, which sucks. You're almost like required, in my opinion, to designate a move slot to protect, which you typically would sometimes before, to guarantee your talk score, but not very often if you knew how to position Gliscor correctly. But now it's almost like your pseudo recovery move is Black Sludge protect Black Sludge poison heal or whatever. Now you're kind of running into it even more with a Pokemon that already has really, really heavy form move slot syndrome. It did get spikes, and I think like Sword Stance variants are going to be very solid. I think that this Pokemon with Terra also has a lot of upside, but I do think it is a little bit mediocre compared to what it's been.
100%. I don't like it. I'm not going to go on a tangent because I could talk about it for hours. Our next Pokemon is going to be Sandy Shocks for JV. I think this kind of clumps the speed tiers together a lot, but I think it also gives him momentum on a team that really enjoys momentum. It also gives him spikes, so I definitely see why he chose this Pokemon, as well as Stealth Rocks, so...
Yeah, no, I love this thing. I'm a huge Sandy Shocks believer. It gets up spikes and rocks so unbelievably freely. And it's a very solid vaulting mod. I mean, opposing grounds can still come in and block it and, you know, threaten you offensively, but a lot of ground types really lack the spadef to switch into an electric type, which is neutral strong coverage like Earth Power. And I think Sandy Shocks does that really well. It forces its own progress, and even random coverage moves like Tri Attack or Power Gem or whatever you want to rock with can be very solid on a Pokemon like this into that Lando T matchup, because you're going to chip them down, maybe nab a status, and force a lot of progress. Grabbing good spikes with Pulse is really important, and I think Sandy Shocks does that.
Definitely. Ant chose Rillaboom. Ant got his ground resist, and he also got grassy terrain.
This is a great pick.
Rillaboom is also going to just punch Monkey Dory's head in. Monkey Dory's going to get bullied on this team. He's going to get kicked like a soccer ball. He's going to get punched like hit like a drum, I guess. I don't know. I like Rillaboom on this team. It gives momentum. It also gives grassy terrain with a team that really doesn't like the move Earthquake and now doesn't like the move High Horsepower, stopping Tantrum. But I think overall Rillaboom is a super solid fit on this team. It also breaks waters, which is something this team definitely struggled with. And Rillaboom got glide back. Rillaboom is good again. It got nerfed to hell. It is base 55 power instead of 70, but it still is what it is. And now we're going to see the Iron Moth get picked by Dell, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, I like Iron Moth a lot on this team. I think that special something that was missed at this point. It does technically resist fighting. It's not a great fighting resist, do not get me wrong. It does not check most fightings other than pivoting in on a fighting. But he can still pick that up later. This Pokemon grabs great momentum. It gives him a great speed tier as well, alongside, I think he has the Iron Treads as well, right? That's an error at the bottom.
Yeah. Okay. No, it's okay. Just point it out. But yeah.
I wanted to make sure I wasn't talking about my ass. But very, very solid Pokemon. I love its breaking potential with something like an Urshifu. Urshifu, U-turn, Iron Moth, click button, or Iron Moth, U-turn, or Urshifu, come in, click button, or U-turn, and just keep up the cycle. He just needs hazards and a good fighting resistance, and this team is incredible. This is by far the best team so far.
Yeah, 100%. I think you can't really go wrong with his top 4 Pokemon. The only thing that he still really needs is going to be a ground resist, like you said. But next up, and lastly, in round 1, we're going to see Azumarill go to the Goldengos. In Killaboom, we're going to see Darkrai, Jirachi, Dragonite, and Azumarill. Like we said, there aren't that many good defensive barriers, and Azumarill is kind of defensive, I guess. I mean, it has thick fat, which is nice on this team, paired with Dragonite as well as Jirachi. Azumarill is definitely going to be forced with more of a defensive role on this team, I personally feel. But like we said, a good defensive fairy is hard to come by. I don't know how many more there were at this point in the draft, so I think Killer picking this makes a whole lot of sense here.
This Pokemon's great. I'm gonna give you guys the of because there are better fairies that fit the meta and how fast-paced the meta games were. They're a little bit slower. This meta is so fast-paced that a lot of times you're not gonna have the time to wish or soft-boiled or, you know, recover or anything like that, because you'll lose momentum. So having a fairy that can't recover all the time, maybe it can rest. I run Rest Talk Azumarill a lot this generation. Isn't that bad? It's also offensively threatening in its own right. It checks what it needs to check, and it kills things in return and forces progress. The entirety of the 18-point tier, Chien-Pao, Darkrai, Dragapult, Garchomp, Iron Valiant, Slugma, and Urshifu. They are all either countered in some of their cases, but in most cases checked, or in especially.
Wait, I'm sorry, real quick. Can you run that 18-point list back one more time, just so everybody understood?
Chien-Pao, Darkrai, Dragapult, Garchomp, Iron Valiant, Slugma, Urshifu Single Strike.
Yeah.
So, like I said, this is the most anti-meta Pokemon. Even 17 points, you have Bax, Chi-Yu, Great Tusk, Landorus, Palafin, Moon, that it all beats 1v1. And even things like Iron Bundle and Torn, it can beat 1v1. I've run AV Azumarill to check Iron Bundle and superpower it. By far, in my opinion, behind Clefable, the best fairy type in the format.
Yeah, and defensively, right?
Yeah, defensively and just as a whole, I think.
Wow, you think it's better than Valiant?
I think that it offers, well, I'm saying in its value. Obviously, if I give him the chance between drafting around Valiant or Azumarill, I'm probably going to pick Valiant. But Valiant's not a fairy type. It clicks fairy moves with stab. It's not a fairy type.
Okay. Yeah, sure. We'll go ahead and move on to the round recap here. So there were a lot of interesting picks in this round. Obviously, removal is something that I think is going to start being prioritized very, very soon, because not a lot of teams have removal, and some big removers got taken in this round. Cyclizar, Corviknight, Weezing Galar, I guess, Gliscor in another universe where it's actually good. There were a lot of Pokemon taken with that, so I think you guys are probably going to start seeing the trend of a lot of defoggers getting taken, and obviously Dell is winning the draft up to this point. Glowking, Treads, Chien-Pao, Iron Moth. It's just a team nobody wants to play.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think Dell's team is by far the best. Like it's not even as much as I love being. You can look at. I really like Ant's pickup though. That's by far my favorite pickup of this round, just because of how ground weak he was before, how well it fits offensively, and the terrain aspect for his ground weak Pokemon that will all live in Earthquake. King Gambit's basically a ground resist with terrain up, so really solid pickup.
No, that's cool. Moving into the next round, we'll just talk about one slide a piece. Like we'll just not take turns on it because it is moving very fast and it was hard to keep up with the 60 seconds this last round. So that's what we'll do. We'll move into round 5 right now. 1 Dell, 2 Amo, 3 no one. Oh, okay. Go ahead and move into round 5 here, and I'll go ahead and talk about how Killer picked up Gengar. I think Gengar's a little bit overrated, excuse me, now, because of the fact that a lot of things in the meta just don't really care about Gengar. It's definitely been power creep, but I think on this team specifically, it fits very well. It breaks things like fairies that this team doesn't really enjoy with things like Darkrai, and while it is a mascot pick, like I said, not my favorite Pokemon in the world. At this point, it's a worse monkey Dory, which is, I think, absolutely hilarious. But it breaks the fairies, which is something that this team desperately needed. This team now just needs something to help break the steals, but it gives a good speed tier as well. It now goes Darkrai to Gengar to Jirachi, and then Dragonite and Azumarill. It's got very good speed tiers. It needs maybe another rocker, it needs a remover, and then I think this team is probably one of the strongest teams that we see in this draft. And let me go ahead and exclamation point go Dingos. Yeah, no, I like Gengar a lot paired with the majority of this team, and it's a very good Darkrai team and one of the first Darkrai drafts that I personally have ever seen, so I'm excited to see how Killa ends up using it.
Yeah, definitely have the best Darkrai team if there's no other Darkrai teams, right?
Exactly. Dell's pick is up next.
Dell is going to be picking up Gardevoir next. He grabs this fairy type, which the thing I think is very underrated with this, in order to get things like Moth, in order to get things like Chien-Pao, in order to get things like Treads back to full health for free is going to be amazing. This team already breaks opposing steel types well. There's not many of them, so offensive fairies have thrived in this generation. Gardevoir is going to be the best fairy to do so. Now, maybe his team wanted a little bit more of a defensive option when it comes to the fairy. Again, I think the biggest weakness to this team, as much as I love it, is how weak it is to opposing fightings right now. It is just very weak to them. So I would love to see a better fighting resist down the line. I don't know how likely that is, though, with the other roles that he does need to fill at this point. Offensively, I think it fits phenomenally. It just leaves a little bit to the desired defense aspect of it, but it's still a great pick. Like there's no complaining from my end about Gardevoir here. Still very solid.
Yeah, and one thing people forget is it also got Vacuum Wave and Aura Sphere, which is really nice. But next up, Ant's gonna pick Did You Know Vaporeon as his water type, and I like Wish Pair next to the King Gambit quite a bit. I think Vaporeon, it got the things back that made me not enjoy it. Other than I don't think it got Scald back. Did it? I may be misremembering, but I don't think it got Scald back. Let me just double check. Vaporeon. Or I don't think it got Toxic back. It didn't get Toxic back, which is definitely a downside of Vaporeon, but it now has Scald back. It has, I think. Let me just double check.
It does.
Yeah, it has Scald back, it has Flip Turn back. It's still a good
and
Wish
Roar.
Passer into something like King Gambit and Rillaboom, things that really do appreciate good Wish Passers. Flip Turn, I think, is the big thing on Vaporeon. I think grabbing momentum into different Pokemon is great. The bad part about Vaporeon is still the fact that it does have, obviously, completely no coverage for opposing waters, which is not great at all. But it can also, I think, still Baton Pass on those Pokemon, which is obviously great. But I like it next to King Gambit. And next up, JV is going to pick Milotic.
Milotic, getting him a good bulky water is important. His team so far. He had 3 Pokemon weak to him. One of them was the one that wasn't was Pheasant Drippity. Giving him a good ice resist is very, very important. Really solid defensive piece. Again, has Scald this generation, was one of the waters that got it, as well as Flip Turn, grabbing momentum for his momentum-based offense. It is very much so momentum-based offense. It is Dragapult, Zarude, Sandy Shocks, getting up hazards and getting around quickly. Really, really solid pickup here from JV. I think it covers a lot of the holes on his team defensively very, very well. And there are those matches where like offensive Milo can do really, really well. Great Spadef wall. Just don't fall into the trap of running Flame Orb Milotic. please do not. If you just look at the calcs, just run boots, run leftovers if there's no hazards. The rolls end up being the similar, if not the same, and you're not chipping yourself down the entire time and becoming a recover bot, especially if they recovers. We love ourselves some Milotic, but don't run Flame Orb. I beg you. Please don't.
Oh, boom moment. Our next pick from Star is going to be his Terra Captain. We're going to see Terra Ceruledge, one of the better Terra Captains on the board for sure. And he's going to be the Fairy and Ghost types. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Fairy on this. I understand the usability to allow you to set up on something like a Dark type. I personally do. Maybe I would have preferred it over Ghost. I would have liked to see like Grass on this. I think Grass is a really good Terra type on this Pokemon. It helps break waters and stuff like that. And obviously you have Flash Fire still, so very good in that sense. Resists ground. There's a lot of reasons why I think Grass is a good Terra type on this Pokemon. But Fairy Ghost, he just really wanted to draft Mimikyu, but good. Obviously this Pokemon has not Sharpness, unfortunately, but it has Sacred Sword. It has Close Combat for coverage. It has obviously Bitter Blade, and it has Stab in Shadow Sneak, and it now has Poltergeist. Poltergeist is so big on this Pokemon, base 110, and obviously teams can prep around that. But what giving Terra to this Pokemon does is it gives it Terra Blast, so it now has another physical Ghost coverage move, which is awesome. Brody is going to pick Hisui and Gudra now, and before Owen talks about it, I just want to say that he picked both Hisui and Zoroark and Hisui and Gudra back to back in 2 different leagues.
You could tell Brody was having a busy week, man. This is going to be his Terra Captain, which I am interested to see how it goes. Water and Fairy as the typings, which I think are probably the best 2 typing you can probably. So definitely pretty solid. It also got a big buff this gen. I think Hisui and Gudra got the same moves that Gudra got, right? Gudra, I gotta double check it or I'm gonna look like an idiot. It did get knockoff. It did not get Scald. And it did not get Toxic. But it got knockoff, which I actually think is a very valuable Pokemon like this. Again, willing down, kind of forcing its own progress, knocking off the leftovers of the switch into the AV or the boots or whatever it may be. Offensively, it can be very strong. Dragon Steel is very hard to switch into. It can kind of function as a 1v1 for any Pokemon you want, very similar in the regards of Iron Hands, whether it be resist berries, AVs, rest variants. It can Iron Defense and Body press through teams. Or it can just be AV Gudra, just like AV Gudra does. So I think it's definitely a solid Pokemon. And I think it's a pretty cool Terra Captain. I'm excited to see how it's gonna, go.
It's definitely a cool Pokemon. Next up, we're going to get a Vikavolt pick from Q, another Pokemon that could Terra. Unfortunately, it did not. I think it was one of the best Terra mons on the board. You just simply Terra Electric that bad boy, and there's 0 downsides. I am a little bit confused of the fit on this team. It's not really a team that benefits a lot from webs. It already had an electric type. Maybe you just... Zapdos was a flyer as well, so you didn't really need it for the Levitate. So I am a little confused as to how this Pokemon fits on the team. Maybe Q just wanted to use it, or maybe he has an idea for some very good breakers that rely on webs later down the line. But I personally feel like this slot could have been filled with something else to fill a couple of different roles. But I am a big Vikavolt fan, a big Vikavolt believer. It is a very strong Pokemon. It has agility and the capability to sweep late game on some slower teams. I like Vikavolt a lot, just maybe not on Q's team.
Yeah, I think I agree. It's definitely a solid Pokemon. Again, you're webs, and it might be a matter of, okay, I want the Scarf tip to not outspeed my Spectrier, which is valuable in its own right? Especially being that you're fighting using because it's not the bulkiest thing in the world. Something I do want to mention, this is from a guy who just drafted Vikavolt, not knowing this. For the people in the chat, I'm sure Q knows because he's drafting, and he's probably looked at her already. But Vikavolt lost Roost, and I think that makes it much. Yeah, I think that makes it much worse in my opinion.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh wait, I forgot the slides were going. Keegan picked Screamtail.
Go, Keegan.
Oh, am I doing it? Okay.
Go ahead.
Keegan
I forgot that we weren't talking back to back.
Keegan sucks, and he picked a fairy, so he doesn't lose to fairies. It's a bad pickup because it doesn't resist fairy. Keegan's team is bad, and he's gonna lose to Clefable. All right, Nate picked Klefki.
Klefki is gonna be next for Nate. I like the dual. It's definitely very solid. Setting up Pokemon like Palafin and Ogerpon to set up Swords Dances, bulk ups to potentially win the game. Same thing with the Landorus, potentially. It also sets up Spikes. It's a Spiker that's not Ogerpon, so it's not locked into that role, which is great. Even Speed Control, Thunder Waving things so that our breakers, our crazy strong top 3, can just come in and click buttons. They aren't forced to boost their speed. They aren't forced into a Scarf because they have that Speed Control already built in. I'm actually a big Klefki believer. I know a lot of people are like hit or miss on Klefki. I think it's a very solid Pokemon, and I'm definitely here for it on Nate's team.
would fit pretty well on Keegan's team is all I'm gonna say. But Keegan unfortunately doesn't. Dude has to be playing in Gen 5. I want you guys to know this is not something that gets patched up. I'm not gonna spoil anything else, but this dude does not resist Fairy by the end of this draft. This dude doesn't know what he's doing. Next up, we're gonna see one of the better Terra captains get off the board here from Obo. We're gonna see Rev of Room, and he is gonna be Terra. Let me find it really quickly. Flying and water. I think flying is by far the best type on Rev of Room. Second type is very debatable. There's a lot of different types that you could choose in that slot, and he ends up going for water. Obviously, this Pokemon is super strong, and the ability Filter makes it even stronger. Shift Gear plus things like Taunt and Parting Shot give it a lot of versatility as well. I think Rev of Room is a Pokemon that has been definitely slept on as the generation has started, but as it's progressed, more people are starting to understand that Rev of Room is kind of the truth. And with Terra, the ability to shift gear makes this bar none top 5 Terra Captain, I would say, top 10 at worst. I think it's a very good Pokemon. It fills roles on Owen's team outside of Terra, being a grounded poison as well as a steel type. Obviously, you're probably going to want to get a secondary steel type if this is going to be your Terra and you're not going to have Terra Steel, but overall, I think Terra Rev of Room, it's very hard to go wrong. And then, oh, you get to talk about my pick. Congrats.
Iron Julius. This is a Pokemon that I was eyeing before. Terra's. I think an Omni Terra kind of thrives a little bit more, but has a very solid speed tier. It's very strong. It has incredible coverage, and it gains momentum with U-turn. It also fits a great speed tier for your team. While I really like your start so far, your team was incredibly slow. Fastest Mon Great Tusk just isn't going to cut it in an offensive generation like this, so having Jugulis that's already naturally fast on its own and can boost your energy up is a very, very solid aspect to this team. I think Terra Poison's a very smart typing on it, being able to break through fairies. You could have also gone Terra Steel with your already known Flash Cannon, but it makes sense to either have the option of going with, Poison coverage or Steel coverage. Definitely not too bad there. I think the thing that this thing is missing is being able to boost speed or even boost its special attack without just the use to boost your energy.
Actually, it has workup.
Oh, does it have workup? I know it's Charge Beam. I've run Charge Beam before.
Yeah,
but it's definitely a really cool mod, and I love its move pool. I think this is very much so a Pokemon too, so I think you'll really enjoy it.
Let's go. Next up, we're going to see Alolan Ninetales, a Pokemon that we probably underpriced just a little bit. I think we put it at 11 points, which is definitely something. It's a Pokemon that we overlooked, for sure. I think Alolan Ninetales on this team is very good. Veil Offense plus Roaring Mid is going to be very interesting to see how it works out. Dragon Dancing, Roaring Moon, even Manaphy under Aurora Veil is going to be very scary. And it's going to be interesting to see if KJ gets any snow abusers, such as Alolan Sandslash to Titan, Beartick. I don't know, is Beartick in the game? That one blows, so maybe not.
He is in the game, but I don't know if that means we should draft.
Yeah, what do you have for a well-played Beartick? Alolan Ninetales is really cool. It's obviously a very good typing. Ice Fairy. It's hard to switch into if you're not a Steel type. And still, I do think the one thing KJ's team really struggles with is, one, he needs some hazards, and two, he has a lot of difficulty breaking Steel types. But Alolan Ninetales plus Roaring Moon is gonna be really good. I don't think this is his Terra Captain. No, it's not. Okay. And then Danny ended up picking Scizor.
Scizor is still one of the best Steel types in the format, and it's last round talking right now, if you guys didn't know. But it's still a very solid pickup, one of the best steals in the format, and being that it doesn't have Roost anymore, I think it's really important that it gets, is able to grab wishes from Sylveon. It's going to really punish opposing fairies, which this team didn't super appreciate up to this point. It's going to grab momentum as well for things like Crawdaunt to come in. Maybe the Steel resist is an opposing fire type, then your Crawdaunt comes in with its Terra Water and kills something. You could even try and burn it, but you're still dying. So I definitely really like the Scizor pickup for this team. I think it fits really, really well.
Yeah, I think Danny just needs to work on his speed tiers, and he might, I don't know, this kind of looks like the start of a rain team. I don't know, maybe Torn plus Scizor might be. Danny's just drafting every mod that fell off his chin. For real, Danny is the old washed guy. Next up, we're going to see Owen. He's going to end up taking Diancie. This was actually a pick that someone who was very strong and handsome ended up helping Owen with. Diancie's a cool Pokemon. It gives him both Spikes and Stealth Rocks. It gives him one of the last fairies on the board that are actually viable, that are not named Dashbun. Obviously, Diancie is a pretty good Pokemon. It gives him some very key resist to things like Dark and some good switch-ins. The fact that it has Spikes and Stealth Rocks on this team specifically, like I said earlier, Bundle is a Pokemon that really benefits from Hazard Stack, and Diancie is a very good Hazard Stacking Pokemon. So I'm excited to see how Owen uses Diancie in conjunction with Iron Bundle. Diancie in general is a Pokemon that I know Owen very much enjoys using, and it paired with Iron Bundle specifically, I think even Okidogi probably really enjoys the fact that this Pokemon exists. So I'm very excited to see how Owen ends up using Diancie plus Iron Bundle.
All right, next up, do we have the next one on the other?
Yep.
We do. We have Tinkaton. I should just assume large. Definitely an interesting pick, right? We just talked about how the fairy type are limited in between, but it is the dual steel typing, so it does share with that employee a little bit, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I've never seen double steel be a huge problem, but the issue I have right now is it's ground resist Meowscarada. So he's really going to need to grab either solid resist or immunities going forward, because he's very ground weak at the moment. Meowscarada is not a ground type switch in, but it gives him another rocker. He has so many hazards right now. He has 2 spikers and 3 rockers, so he is good on the hazards department for the rest of the draft. He can really set of hazards up to this point. It's not my favorite fairy in the world, and really appreciate some wish support, so maybe he'll want to look into that. But it's got a solid speed tier for its bulk, and it can encore things. It knocks off items, it gets up rocks, and it's a general nuisance. Definitely probably the best fairy left on the board too, so it's a good grab in that regard.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not going to be 5 hours, you little stinker. We did the math. The draft slides start getting faster and faster as the rounds go on. So the draft stream shouldn't be too long. See you, SJ. Have a good night, man. The next pick is going to be another fairy from Amel. We're going to see Mimikyu. Mimikyu is not good. Unfortunately, I love the little guy, but he's not good. But it's a fairy type, and it's an Amel Pokemon. Yeah, we're just going to move on to the round recap. I don't have a lot to say about Mimikyu. So I think my favorite pick of this round, it might be the guy that chose Iron Jugulus. I think that was a really solid pickup in this round 5.
I'm sure you think so. Oh my gosh, my mouse is crazy right now. I definitely a lot of really solid pickups nonetheless in this round in general. I like the Scizor pickup a lot from Danny, and I know we didn't talk about it a ton, but I didn't get to talk about it. But Ninetales on KJ's team, I think, was incredibly smart with Roaring Moon and especially Manaphy. And even those Double Dance and Amorous sets, people don't really think about the fact that that thing has both Calm Mind and Iron Defense, and also has agility to boost its speed. You can definitely run into some scary, boosting and Amorous sets under that veil, especially kind of circumventing its really bad bulk. So I think that was like a perfect pickup from KJ.
Yeah, no, I like it a lot. Obviously, we're getting to the point to where a lot of these are just kind of glue pieces. And Super Mr. my Diego's up in an hour, and there are 6 more rounds. We're about to go fast, Dan, I promise. Speaking of, we're just going to go ahead and jump into round 6. And then first pick is going to be a Pokemon that I wanted, that Amel took right from under my nose. It's going to be Slowbro Galar. I think this Pokemon is very underrated, and I think people are starting to realize that, hey, Poison Psychic is still a good typing, and it still has Regenerator. Maybe it's not nearly as good as Galarian Slowking, but it's definitely a very usable Pokemon. It has access to T-Spikes, and yeah, it doesn't have Chilly Reception, and maybe Quick Claw and Quick Draw is banned in most leagues, this one included, but overall, I think Slowbro Galar is a very good Pokemon. I think a lot of people overlook it, and I think while I don't understand, I might be biased because I want the Pokemon, but I don't like the double psychic, I don't like the double psychic on this team. He does have good resist in both Ursaluna and Hammerot. Galarian Slowking as a poison type on Amel's team, I like a lot. As a fairy resist on Amel's team, I like a lot. His fire obviously does not resist fairy currently, so a good poison type was something that Amel definitely needed, and in this deck there are actually not that many good fairy types. So and yes, it does also set Trick Room for the Ursaluna, which might have been a thought process there. Next up, Lars is going to pick his Terra Captain.
So next up is Lars' Terra Captain. I definitely think it's actually a pickup. Offensively and defensively, this one has a lot of versatility. It can be a great rocker, it can on-pour wave and use around, but it also can run those Calm Mind or Nasty Blood variants and really cleave through teams, especially with those fairy and ice typings. I think it's tough for a lot of teams to switch in to it when it gets boosted and things like that. So really solid Pokemon, especially the thing I'm most worried about, and I'm wondering, maybe a fighting typing would have been pretty cool to hit both dark types and steel types on those more offensive sets, but I think Fairy is better overall defensively. So I at least understand in that regard, and I'm excited to see how it goes here. It's definitely a really cool Pokemon.
Yeah, and I don't know if you said it, but the stream, or if the stream heard it, but it is Fairy and Ice on that mess rip. So Owen's next pick is going to be Bronzong. Bronzong paired with this team, again, it looks like a pick that someone who's really strong and handsome helped this guy with. Bronzong is a good steel type, one of the few good steel types left at this point in the draft. It also gives him a levitate user and a fairy resist on a team that desperately needed a fairy resist, as Okidogi obviously is a good poison type, but it doesn't resist fairy by any means, and Owen is obviously not any type of Terra type that would resist that. Bronzong gives another rocker, so Crocodile, Diancie, and Bronzong are all three really good rockers. Do not say the big donger in my chat, please. That is illegal.
No big dongers. Any big dongers in chat?
Do not say that. Bronzong's cool. I like its fit on the team a lot. I think it offers a lot of different opportunities on this team, especially for things like Crocodile. It opens it up to not have to run rocks every single week, and it also makes Owen not have to draft Steel type Berserker, and nobody wants to draft Steel type Berserker.
No, nobody wants to draft Berserker in general. But he's really fucking bad. Alright, next up, my mouse died, so I have to scroll over to the dock really quick just so I can see. I drafted Bronzong and Danny drafted Clodsire next up. Gonna give him some very much needed hazards in my opinion. He had one rocker up to this point in Komodo. His steel type did not rock. So Komodo made up for that, but we have a ground type that sets up both rocks and spikes, which is really important for a team like this. It gives them another fairy resist, which is really valuable, and a potential water immunity if you want to run water absorb in certain matchups, which is definitely very viable to do so in many matchups. Unaware is obviously a great ability as well. It spreads status with toxic and toxic spikes. It can yawn things as well. Overall, just a very solid Pokemon. Much better than Quagsire will ever be. I would like everybody to note and be ready.
Please don't be mean to Quagsire.
Just because of how good he is. That's the GOAT, Mr. Claude. But really solid pickup here from Danny. I like it a lot. Covers a lot of weaknesses on his team up to this point.
Berserker is at least better than Magneton and Tinkatuff. That is a sentence of all time.
No, it's better than Tinkatuff. Okay.
No, well, I know. I'm saying if that's the comparison, yikes. You know what I mean? Like, but next up, our good pal KJ is going to take Jolteon, who he originally had as a Terra Captain. I think he changed it in Grace, or maybe he changed his mind. Jolteon on this team, I think ultimately he just picked it to be the Terra Captain, but I think it still fills some very valuable roles. Elite Speed tier in base 130. Nah, go ahead.
It's not a good Pokemon.
Dude, Jolteon's a good Pokemon. Let's chill out. Let's chill. I'm a big Jolteon believer. It gives you momentum. It's base 130 speed, and it's electric type, which is important because everybody knows
a fast electric type.
Everybody knows you need a fast electric type, and this is where that role is filled. So Jolteon is good here.
Gen 9 Jolteon, you're so sexy.
All right, aha, my pick is now.
Snorlax, what a demonically fat core. Great Tusk, Clef, Heatran, Rotom, and Snorlax. Really fat offense fat defense right here. Now, something that I will note is Clefable takes on a lot of the brunt of that defense right now because the rest of your defensive pieces are all weak to things that Clef resists, but that leads to a lot of pressure on Clef. So I'm interested to see how that will work out with the limited recovery options this generation, especially when it comes to Moonlight instead of Soft Boil with 16 PP. But Snorlax in general is going to be a very solid death wall in this team. It does so many things so well. People only think of it as like that AV monster or that cursing monster, but things like offensive like Choice Band or even just 4 attack Snorlax are very viable in a lot of matchups because this thing has Gen 1 coverage and a pretty solid attack stat on top of that. It's a really solid Pokemon, and I think it fits this team really well.
Yeah, no, I think that guy's very handsome. Next up, we're going to have Feet Guy. Everybody knows Azelf is Feet Guy, of course, and is going to go to Obo in the Morpeko United. It fills a good speed tier in between both Rabambi and Garchomp. Excuse me. And it gives him another rocker. And up to this point, his only rocker was Garchomp, so it definitely alleviates pressure in that sense. And it also gives him a Levitate Pokemon on a team that lost to the move Earthquake. Obviously, Rabambi resists Earthquake, but does it really?
Okay, does it to be fair, is Azelf really immune to
I mean, yeah, a well-played Earthquake might OHKO Feet Guy. Why is Azelf Feet Guy? It's better we don't ask questions. Azelf is Feet Guy, and it's a good special breaker. It takes some pressure off of Chi-Yu. He now has 2 good special breakers, 2 good physical breakers. Azelf, it does have Nasty Plot still.
Yes, it does.
So it retains some setup, and it also got knockoff back. So Azelf's a cool Pokemon. It's not necessarily my favorite Pokemon on this team, but it does fill some roles, such as a Rocker and a Levitate Pokemon on Obo's team. So Nate's next pick is going to be Hydreigon.
Hydreigon, really cool pick. I love Hydra still. I just kind of, moveful things that it lost, but it's still very solid. It's also another rocker, which sounds dumb, but up to this point we have 1 stealth rocker and Landorus, which might not always want to run. So now we have Hydreigon to be able to run it. It's a great Scarfer for a team like this. His speed tiers are a little bit clumpy in general right now, which is a bit unfortunate. He has Ogerpon at 110, I believe, right? It's 110. And then he has Pokemon like Palafin, Landorus, Hydreigon really clumped together. And then things that don't matter speed-wise in Weezing, Klefki. So like those like base like 85 breakers are really going to go to town on Nate's team at the moment. So I think he really wants to patch up the speed option on his team. But other than that, again, I love Hydra. I think it's very slept on. It grabs great momentum, and the name of this team is going to be Momentum, to get in, and chip things down for one of these strong Pokemon to win the game. So, solid pickup.
And one thing you didn't note either is it got knockoff now for some reason. So that's sick.
Oh, did it? Oh, that's good. That's a really good tool for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Next up, we're going to see Serena. Again, I'm glad that I'm the one that gets to talk about Keegan's team. So, Keegan, I don't know if you knew this. Serena does not resist fairy. We're 6 picks deep and you have 0 fairy resistance in sight. You just get walled by Clefable. You beat down by Clefable. Serena is a rapid spinner. It definitely has value in that sense. I still think it's kind of a bad Pokemon. I think it's not very good. It's a ground resist that does not resist ground, and you also don't have a ground resist actually up to this point. And Serena, I'm not counting it. This Pokemon sucks. It gives you momentum on a team that definitely likes momentum, but something like Greninja and Rapid Spin instead of Defog is definitely valuable on a team like yours that really values Hazard Stack, but your team sucks. You don't have a fairy resist, you don't have a ground resist, you don't really have 6 Pokemon on your team. I don't know, like, did you close your eyes and just like point your finger at your monitor to pick Pokemon? I don't know, but it is what it is.
It's a good spinner for the team, and it gives them a good rap.
Let's not try to sugarcoat it. Let's just tell it how it is. Next up, Q picks Volcanion.
This is a pick I actually really like. I think Terra Volcanion. And on top of the Terra aspect of Fairy and Grass, which I think the only other typing that you would consider.
Wait, sorry, what type was it?
Fairy and Grass.
Fairy and Grass, okay.
Yeah. So still, again, very, very solid typing, offensively and defensively, and very hit opposing dragons, which you can't really otherwise with your move pool. So I like that a lot. Grass is also really cool, lets you hit waters better. Ground is also a cool typing defensively, but I think these two are the best 2 typings offensively, at least, and I think it's probably going to play that role. This is a Pokemon that does appreciate webs, as the Vikavolt offers, I will say. More offensive Volks like Specs Volks, and even just 4 attacks offensive Volks like being able to outspeed things, which they typically don't. Is also a water immunity, which is always going to be valuable. Water types are annoying, and having a guaranteed switch into them is really nice, especially because you can Terra and rip through them that way. There's a lot of really cool options you can go with this thing. Like I said, Boots, or just Specs, or Scarf, or even Fire Spin Taunt sets, I think are really good into breaking through fat, stally teams. Volcanion's going to do that really well. So definitely pretty big on Volcanion here. Good pickup by me. By
you.
Q.
No, yeah, by you. Next up, we're going to see Brody take one of the last fairy types off the board. It's going to be Grimmsnarl. Set up.
No!
Why'd you say no?
Not Grimmsnarl.
I like Grimmsnarl.
Go ahead,
No, he offers screens on a team that has good setup options like Thundurus and Urshifu and Hisuian's or let's get some more setup options, I think, if we're going to take Grimmsnarl. Let's try to get one more setup option. I like Grimmsnarl in general. It gives him a fairy. Like we said, there are not very many fairies left on the board, so valuing that now is going to be good. Star ends up picking Hatterene with this pick.
Yeah, another fairy, kind of the counterpart to Grimmsnarl. So it's there isn't a big trick room aspect, but I don't even think trick for other things. I think offensive trick room Hatterene itself is very solid. It's very anti-hazard, which is good on has no removal right now. So it's really only Hatterene. He's got to be those ability shield hazard setters though, because they're going to be able to just go through his magic bounce and set up hazards anyways. So I think that's a very important thing for him to note. Is his team's very hazard weak right now, and something I'm noticing is his team is running lower, and we already got a fire type, and there's no Torkoal. So I really hope that Star hopefully thinks about picking that guy up soon, because while Walking Wake is great, I think it's very bad outside of the sun. So I'm hoping that he ends up picking that up. I do think that Hatterene was a good pickup here, but we got to start thinking about that guy soon.
Hey man, Ninetales too, don't forget.
Or I keep forgetting Ninetales. Ninetales too. My bad. Ninetales. Okay.
Next up, JV is going to take a bad Pokemon. There's no way to sugarcoat it. I think Terra was allowed on this, and he didn't choose to Terra it. It's Lucario. I don't think that this is a real Pokemon. I think this Pokemon is bad. I think it's not a real Steel type. I don't see any benefit to this Pokemon. I think that there were so many better fightings on the board if chose not to Terra. I'm an avid Lucario hater. If it doesn't have Terra, I think it is.
It is Terra.
No, it's not Terra.
On the dock, it is.
Is it? Am I wrong?
It's fighting normal.
Oh wait, no, I'm wrong. Sorry, JV. I was just being mean. I was looking at the wrong team for some reason. Fighting normal.
I think this thing is really good with Terra.
No, it's Terra. Yeah, JV got a good one. It's fighting in normal. I'm sorry, JV. I was being mean to you.
I was like, wait a minute.
Let's go to the next slide, please. Let's just go to the next slide. I'm sorry.
And grab Donphan, which is going to be probably, in my opinion, a top 3 spinner in the game right now. And that's why you've seen it like shoot in viability, because there's not a lot of defog. And now we need good spinners, but there's not a lot of good spinners. And Donphan does kind of fit that role. Great physically defensive check. It really appreciates the terrain from Rillaboom, at least defensively. It kind of makes its Earthquake clicking a little bit more finicky, but not the end of the world. But it also really loves those wishes from Vaporeon. I think it's like a very solid makeshift defensive core in like Gambit, Rillaboom, Vapo, Donphan. I really like that aspect of it. It gives him rocks, which up to this point he only had King Gambit rocks, so that's very reliable. Gives him a ground type, which is always pretty much a necessity on a team that doesn't want to get Volt switched on forever. So I think it's a great pickup. This is one of my favorite Pokemon to draft this generation. It just fits so many roles really well, and it does what it's supposed to really reliably.
Does it get high horsepower or Stomping Tantrum?
I know it gets Stomping Tantrum. I'm not sure about high horsepower.
I mean, he's a horse, right? Like, he has 4 legs.
He does have the horses.
He does have high horsepower. Okay. Next up, we see Del pick Chestnut. I actually think that the whole GBU came together to help him pick this Pokemon because he was Johning. So we were all like, Chestnut. And he picked it. He needed some more hazards. He got Chestnut for hazards. He got another ground resist. Chestnut's a pretty cool guy. It offers a lot of things on this team. There were not very many good fighting types left either, and fighting helps break steals, which is something that this team doesn't necessarily struggle with between Iron Treads and Iron Moth, but just having Chestnut to alleviate pressure off of those is very, very nice. I think Chestnut is a really cool guy. He still has things like Leech Seed, and he still has things like Spiky Shield. It's a good Pokemon. It might have even got knockoff, I think, in the DLC. Let me see. It got knockoff. Like, Chestnut's a very solid Pokemon. I think it's extremely underrated and very underexplored this generation. I haven't heard a lot of talk about it by any means, so I'm very excited to see what Del can do with potential Spike Stack with Chien-Pao, which is a very scary thing to say that you have to face in whatever league that you're a part of. And then lastly for this round, Killa is going to take Zapdos.
This is a solid pickup. I like the offensive fighting plus things like Darkrai, Jirachi a lot. It fits a very valuable speed tier for him too in 100. Now I know he has, but it's not a Pokemon that typically always wants to run max speed a lot of the time, especially with the more bulky role that I think is going to play on this team. It is also a ground immunity. He did not have a good ground resist up to this point. He has Dragonite as well, but depending on your Dragonite's role in that week, you might not want to have your multi-scale popped until it's time to win. So now he has at least Zapdos as an option for that. I'm a big Zapdos guy. I love this Pokemon. I think it's also really solid with a Pokemon like Gengar as well. I love Kalua's offense so far. I think he's drafted really well around the Darkrai, and either making Darkrai thrive or Darkrai's partners that, forces in the things that, the partners beat. I think he's drafted really well around those Pokemon.
Yeah. And then as for the round, that is not the right slide. Hold on. Round 6. That's not the first time that's happened, and it won't be the last. Round 6 recap. There were some cool Pokemon taken this round. Obviously, Terra Lucario is one of the better ones. We also have Terra Volcanion taken. Hydreigon making it this late was really shocking to me. I think that's a very good Pokemon, but it filled what Nate needed in a special breaker very, very well. And there is obviously Jolteon as well. Jolteon's a very good pickup there.
Yeah, I think my favorite pickup, I like the Lucario. I like the Volcanion a lot as well. I love that thing as a Terra Captain. Terra Captain that we are allowing in this season, and then things like Zapdos and Chesnaught are also going to be very solid, and they fit the teams that they were drafted on very well.
All right, Owen, I'm going to start round 7, and I'm going to run to refill my drink again. And I want to warn you, these slides are 45 seconds per pick, so...
Okay, we're starting with... Which one are we starting with? Are we starting with... we're starting with...
Toedscruel. Ready, go.
Toedscruel. All right, so Toedscruel actually, again, another Pokemon that fits well. Again, it fits that similar 100 speed tier, but it's not a Pokemon that's going to be running that. So I don't think it's too big of a deal. It gives a ground resist to Kahlua. Not one that takes Earthquakes particularly well with very mediocre Fizz Def, but regardless, it is going to be very solid defensively on this team. It can spread Spores, it can Spike and Rock, which are both going to be very valuable. It rapid spins. It's a great hazard setter, and I think it fits this team really well in the sense that it does resist ground at the very least. So those choice ground types aren't going to have as free of a time. It also resists Edgequake, which is a very rare quality to, have as a defensive Pokemon. So I actually really like this pickup a lot here for Mr. Kahlua. Now, I'm going to assume that the slide has moved on because John's not sharing his screen. And next up for Dill, we have Kleavor. Kleavor is a really cool option on this team. It gives him another rocker, which right now he only had Iron Tread. So I think that's a very important aspect of the team. Got another rocker, great momentum grabber, a Pokemon that can set up Stealth Rock as well without having to click Stealth Rock and doing damage to things with sharpness boosted attacks is very valuable. And those rocks are not immune by anything besides it missing potentially, which is the downside. But again, there's a lot of upside from a Pokemon like Kleavor here on Dell's team. Grabs great momentum, and it gets in things like that Iron Moth in particular. You're going to see a lot of opposing Steel types want to come in, so Iron Moth and Iron Treads are going to be great switch-ins to deal with the things that beat Kleavor. And again, he's getting other breakers that, kind of chip open teams to where Chien-Pao can win later on, which is always going to be really, really solid.
All right, I am back, so I'll talk about the next Pokemon.
The Dunsparce, is it on screen?
The Dunsparce is on screen. Were you talking about that?
I was talking about Kleavor, so you're good. Now I'm going to get some bathroom. I'll be back.
Okay, the Dunsparce is cool. He's a normal type, one of the few in this game. He also gets rocks. Ant's team is bad. Let's go to the next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. It's on a timer. I can't actually move it, by the way, guys. We gotta wait. I like the Dunsparce. I don't know. I mean, it feels a decent role on Ant's team as a Ghost Resist. Next up, we're going to see Moltres. Moltres is pretty cool on JV's team. It gives him a Fire type, which he didn't already have, and it gives him a Flying type, which he didn't already have. It makes his speed tiers a little clunky with Pheasantipity, Zarude, Sandy Shocks, Lucario, and Moltres, but it also helps break steals for a team that otherwise has a little bit of trouble breaking steals besides, Andy Shocks definitely does it, and then Lucario, which is Terra Fighting and Normal, does a very good job of breaking those. It gives him momentum as well, helps him break things like Grass types as well. You can both switch with the Sandy Shocks into the Moltres, and then you're able to put them in a little bit of a cycle. On top of that, you also have Milotic with Flip Turn, which synergizes very well. Hi Jesse, how are you doing? I like Moltres. I think it's a good fit. Let me make sure these are 45 seconds. They are. Okay. Next up, Star is going to take Tyranitar. Tyranitar got knock off this generation, which is a massive buff for it, actually. Instead of having to run Crunch, you now run Knockoff, and you now remove items on a very good support Pokemon. I know it's a little weird that he chose Tyranitar over the likes of Ninetales or Torkoal in order to run that, but it did give him a Dark type when there weren't too many good Dark types left. It's a good generation for Dark types, so there's always going to be a decent Dark type left on the board, but he decided to go with Tyranitar simply because he wanted to try it. He let me know, and that's completely fine. It gives him another rocker, and knockoff removing items is going to be massive on this Pokemon, removing, leftovers from Pokemon that want to switch into it, things like Boots that want to switch into it, things like that. I think Tyranitar is a really cool Pokemon, and I'm excited to see how Star uses it. Our next pick is going to be Shaman for Brody. Shaman is Moltres and Tyranitar this late. There are some really good Pokemon taken this late. The boards are really good this generation, I'll be honest. Shaman gets taken here. Shaman is a ground type on Brody's team that was screaming to not ever face a Pokemon that has Earthquake. I like Shaman here. The only problem with Brody's team is going to be Urshifu, Thundurus, Zoroark, Shaman. They're all like very clumpy speed tiers. And then the very slow Pokemon are Slowking, Grimmstar, Hisuian, Gudra. It's very clumpy as far as the speed tiers go. So I'm very curious to see how Brody patches that up, because right now that would be, in my opinion, his team's biggest weakness. Shaman, though, does definitely patch up the ground type weakness that he did not like. Next up, we're going to see Fortress for Q. Fortress adds a lot of roles, and I like Fortress a lot. It again invalidates the fact that Vikavolt was picked on this team. I'm still very curious about the Vikavolt pick, but other than that, I think Q has a fantastic team. It gives momentum with Volt Switch. It gives hazards with Spikes, T-Spikes, Stealth Rocks. It gives removal with Rapid Spin. Fortress is a very good remover. This Chin, which is sad to say because I'm an avid Fortress hater normally, but Fortress is very valuable, and there were almost no Steel types in the decks, let alone left on the board. So Fortress is a good grab here by Q. Don't say Big Keith. It's not Big Keith. Fortress is not Big Keith. But Fortress, I definitely do like it on his squad because he didn't have a remover up to this point. He had a lot of Rock Weak Pokemon, Zapdos and Volcanion and Vikavolt. So next up, we are going to see another one of the best Terra Captains allowed get taken off the board here. We're going to see Keegan grab Gyarados. Gyarados is still not a Fairy Resist, but he is going to be Terra Electric and Flying. Definitely the best choices on Gyarados. This Pokemon is very, very good. Being able to Dragon Dance set up, being able to taunt different Pokemon, it has decent enough coverage. Gyarados is insane. I think it's one of the best Terra Pokemon on the board, and Keegan just still doesn't understand that fairy types exist. I don't know what he's doing. Pick a Terra Steel or something, Keegan. I don't get it. I don't get it. You're just asking to lose to Clefable. Next up, I think is where this has been 45 seconds. Go to the next slide. Is gonna be Nate's Regieleki. Oh, what a Pokemon to come back to, Owen.
Listen. It gives him spin, which is valuable. The only issue is I have not met a Stealth Rocker that Regieleki doesn't to, which is an unfortunate thing when it comes to your Terra Captain, obviously. But it is a Pokemon that does force a ground type to come, which can lead to advantageous positions with something like Palafin. I think what's most valuable about Regieleki on this team is that it has the potential of spinning and then booming, right? And maintaining offensive momentum. It's really going to struggle getting Volt Switches, non-Terra Lucky. If you guys don't know, might be the Thatmon's #1 hater. I'm really not big a fan. But say there's a matchup where you don't want to bring Klefki as the hazard or the screen setter, you can run Screen Spin Boom and just blow up and get into one of your offense mons, which is always really, really cool. And you know, there are some things that appreciate, I guess there's not really anything that really appreciates ground types being chipped and forced in up to this point. But regardless, it does force very specific prep, and it's a very elite speed tier, which he didn't have up to this point. But it's also not forcing opposing speed tiers. So yeah, take what you will from it. It is a Regieleki.
Next up, Obo is going to take Decidueye. Decidueye is nice on this team. It gives him a defogger, it gives him a spin blocker for the webs, which is going to be nice, and it gives him momentum. Decidueye is a very good role filler. It's not got very great stats, but it does fill a lot of different options. I think it also kept knockoff, so knock, U-turn, defog. It's a very good Pokemon. And then I ended up choosing Weavile.
Good old Weavile, he's back. Oh my god, our king. We are so back. Weavile got knocked. Now this is double dark, but honestly, it's not a bad type to die. We've talked about multiple times this dark spam is this generation. And having 2 offensive darks and one that's going to be tearing into a different type anyways is definitely not a bad thing at all. Weavile is very strong. It gives his team an elite speed tier on top of the Jugelis at 108 or 106 or whatever it's at. But Weavile at the 124-ish mark, whatever it hits, is very solid. It can now knock off items again. He is half of what he was last gen. We just need him to get Triple Axle in the next DLC, and we'll have our boy back at his full power. They just had to nerf him a little bit. But I'm sure John, as an avid Weavile just stan, is very excited to use Weavile when he's good again. So definitely a really solid pickup here for John.
Please give him Axel. I'm on my knees. Next up, we have Yuxi. Yuxi for KJ is really nice because it gives him a rocker, which is actually the first rocker that KJ has, other than Jolteon, of course. It also gives him U-turn, which is nice. At base 95 speed tier, and it's probably the second best fit for this team, other than Jolteon. I like him a lot, and of course, this is Boobs guy, of course.
Incorrect on so many different things.
This is
Pokemon again, on top of being one of the most reliable rockers in the game, it also and has a really solid speed tier for how bulky it is. What is it, base 95 or something crazy? So it's very bulky, but it's very fast. It can also even set up and win games with Nasty Plot and Calm Mind. It got access to Mystical Power, obviously, this generation. So there's definitely things that this thing can do to kind of take the game into its own hands, which is really cool from a Pokemon as bulky as this. So really, really cool one.
Yeah, and then next up, Nate is going to take Pelipper. He got a rain team. Everybody in the chat is surprised right now. Pelipper,
Nate?
Yeah. Oh, Nate. Danny. Oops, whoops. I read Wakes and it rhymed with Nate, and I was like, Nate. Danny is gonna take Pelipper. Pelipper with Tornadus. Hurricanes are 100% accurate. Groudon hits a lot harder. Scizor doesn't care about fire types. I mean, this was a rain team. Everybody saw it coming from a mile away. And then next up, Owen is gonna take Volcarona, round 7.
Baby. So if you look at the team, we kind of talked about. So Volcarona does give us time position to just win games. A lot of things that Volk doesn't appreciate: bulky waters. We have things for, and we'll have more things for. We have Thunderous and Bundle, and another pick later on. Another 2 picks that really bully waters. We have things that bully opposing rock types in Crocodile and Okidoki. We have great dragon checks in Diancie and Bronzong. And really, other than that, what checks Volcarona consistently? It's a very solid win condition on a team like this. We just need to find opportunities to get in with our plentiful momentum in Bundle, Thunderous, Diancie, and potentially future members. Hits a very valuable speed tier as well in base 100 exactly on the dot, which is always going to be really good. I love Volk even without Terra. I think it's a great Pokemon. I think it actually fits his team up perfectly.
It does. Whoever pointed it out to you must be very, very intelligent. Next up, Rotom Wash gets taken from Lars. It gives him a ground immunity on top of Mesprit, which is obviously really nice with Glimmer and Empoleon. It also gives him very good momentum. Lars is really holding on to some of those top tier threats that have not been taken. I would like to say there are definitely, at this point in the draft, still some 16, even some 17 pointers. A single 17 pointer, Lando I, that has not been taken off the board. So people might not be eyeing them, and Lars might realize that. So he might be taking the best glue pieces that he can at this point in the draft, and it's saving the last pick to potentially be maybe even Lando I, or maybe some other top tier threats that are on the board. And then lastly, Amo takes not Ice Cube, Cryogonal, Ice type, whatever.
Same thing. Now this is a Terramon, and I actually think it's because his starter typings are going to be electric and water, and I think it actually really helps Cryogonal a lot. 1, you become no weaknesses with that electric type plus levitate, but 2, that's Bolt Beam Stab. Ice Beam plus Terra Blast is going to be Bolt Beam. Water is going to really help it beat a lot of the things that it didn't beat before, opposing fire types in general, as well as just ice and water being basically unresisted, water being an incredible defensive typing. It also gives him rapid spin. Really decent Pokemon. It's a little bit lacking on like the damage output aspect, but solid Spadef Wall. And who knows, Amel pulls up with the Specs Cryo, you better be ready. It might do you dirty. So definitely really solid.
Yeah, and then I hate Amel because he's taken 2 Pokemon that I was definitely thinking about late in this draft. So as for the round recap, I think that the person that got the best pick here, I think honestly, I don't want to toot our own horns here, Owen, but I think you and I got some very good Pokemon that fit our teams both very, very well.
Yeah, the round 7 Volcarona and Weavile is pretty crazy.
Yeah, and of course, Keegan, while it doesn't resist Fairy, Terra Gyarados is obviously one of the best Terra Pokemon that we allowed. So getting that Pokemon,
I wasn't here when we
securing
talked
that.
about it. I thought I had the best Terramon in the draft, and I saw Keegan draft Terra Gyarados. I said, wait a minute, I didn't read.
Yeah, I'm shocked it lasted that long, to be honest.
Yeah, by far, in my opinion, the best Terramon in this draft. So I think that was a great pickup for him. And the GOAT to Dunsparce went. Something interesting that we didn't know, because I wasn't here, Stargoing T-Tar, he's not getting Sun.
Yep.
It looks like it, at least, which I don't know how I feel about on a team like this. I love T-Tar. It's a great Pokemon in general, but I think the cohesiveness of his draft has kind of lost its way.
Yeah, I think you said it well. Let's go ahead and move on to round 8, in which Amel is going to start us off by picking Drop-Blom. Drop-Blom is going to be another Terra captain for Amel. It's going to be Poison and Fairy, and I don't know, I like Drop-Blom. I think Drop-Blom's really cool. The ability to have, Unburden, and just being a Terramon in general is really cool for Drop-Blom. Being able to Poison and Steel are pretty cool. Drop-Bomb is what my mod SJ calls it, and I thought he made a typo once.
Take your fist out of your mouth when you say it.
I like it. It's a spin blocker. I know he sniped Nate with this pick, and it actually fit very well on Nate's team. And it was definitely one of the better low tier, like 6-point Terra Pokemon that we allowed. So for the people who weren't going for the top tier threats, I think Drop-Blom was one of the best options. But here is a top tier threat from Lars.
This is where I think his teams are turning around a little bit. Now it is worse, and honestly, a lot of the times with this Annihilate, this team in particular, you probably don't want to tear it because this is the best spin blocker in the game. Because if you block the spin, you block the spin. If they attack expecting you to switch in, boosted Rage Fist. So I really like this for this team a lot. He has so much hazards, so much momentum, so many ways of bringing this Pokemon in, and he has a few screen setters as well, to where he can kind of just go crazy. Another aspect is that Mesprit having Healing Wish into the Annihilate, it keeps its Rage Fist boost when it comes back up to full. So you might be dealing with the full health Annihilate with 300 base power Rage Fist, winning the video game. So I think it's a really, really good pickup for Lars. And I think this is where his team starts to really turn around, in my opinion.
100%. Annihilate fit perfectly on his team. Next up, you're going to take Goodra because you actually can't go without Goodra in a single draft this generation. I've noticed you have picked it every single draft. Fun fact, Goodra is I think it's my second most drafted Pokemon of all time. And I quite like it. I would like it better with some Wish. Get you a Wish Passer, and then we're set. I think is all this team is kind of needing at this point. Obviously, removal would also be nice because Owen does not have removal, but Owen is also the type of person to just scream the word boots if you say rocks.
Boots!
Yeah, he screams it louder than you can say hazards because he thinks that it invalidates them. So, next up, Danny picks Ludicolo.
He is the coolest guy in the draft. I love Ludicolo. Suave, cool, epic gamer than Ludicolo. He's just dancing. It's also a cool rain sweeper or rain breaker, more so in my opinion, which can pair decently with the Crawdon. Really overwhelming water checks. One of them might be Fizz Def, one of them might be Spud Def. So it's nice to be able to use that, to its advantage. Cool Mon. You can either run those Specs or Life Orb sets, but you can even run like AV variants and, kind of go from there. So, solid pickup here in Ludicolo. He's also just a cool guy. He's grooving.
He is definitely a cool guy. That's SJ. That is the embodiment of SJ. Next up, we're going to see KJ refuse to pick more than one rocker because he refuses to believe the hazards are real. We see Breloom, Data Break Steel types, which is actually something that I was saying that he desperately needs in this draft. I think a good ground type is one other thing that he is going to end up needing, in my opinion. But Breloom's a good pickup regardless. I think Breloom, to break those steals as well as have priority for those steel types in Mach Punch is going to be awesome. And having Spore to put something to sleep is also obviously very, very valuable, and it also gives him a speed tier he did not yet have in 70. So I think Breloom fit on the team very, very well. I think the only things that KJ needs to check off his drafting list right now are rocks and another good reliable way to break steals, and then he will have a very, very solid team that's going to be very difficult to prep for and play, unfortunately. And then I get the GOAT with this next pick.
The GOAT being Weezing, one of my favorite lower point Pokemon. This Pokemon's better than Glare and Weezing. It's always half the price in it. The pure poison typing on top of levitate is going to be great. It's a great physically defensive check to really any physical attacker you can think of. It's going to switch in, it's going to check it well. It's going to chip it down with Rocky Helmet and Pain Split and Will-O-Wisp. It's going to spread passive damage between Toxic with Toxic Spikes or Toxic, or even Burns with Will-O-Wisp, or even Thunderwave, I think, maybe? I don't remember. But regardless, Weezing, it doesn't do a lot, but it does what it's supposed to really freaking well. I'm definitely a big Weezing guy, so it's a good low tier pickup.
Next up, Obo is going to take Gastrodon. Of course, he's going to take the blue version because the pink version is very ugly and should not exist. Gastrodon East here is a really cool Pokemon in the fact that it got both Spikes and Stealth Rocks this generation, which really helps it out. It's still just very bulky. It has like averaging stats like 90 HP, 80 defenses or something like that. It's a very good Pokemon. I like it a lot. It gives Owen a bulky water, which is something that he did not already have, and fills the role in that sense, as well as fills another rocker to alleviate a little bit of pressure off of Garchomp. It is a double type in both the fact that it's a double ground and a double in water, but it doesn't share weaknesses with Garchomp, and having having an offensive water and a bulky water, is not a bad thing by any means in a draft. In fact, it's usually encouraged. Next up, Nate is going to take Dunsparce.
Isn't he just a little fella? I love that guy. Look at him.
I think that should be it. I don't think there should be anything else said about Dunsparce, to be honest.
He rocks, he glares, he roosts. He's actually like low point value. pretty solid. Nate's Ghost Resist was also Hydreigon. A low point Pokemon like Dunsparce actually kind of fit well. Maybe it was a little early, but I mean, would you want to risk on missing out on that little fella? I don't think so. So good pick up by Nate.
That's true. If the little fella got taken, then who would his Ghost Resist have been?
Not little fella, which seems like a bad idea.
It could have been Ursaring, maybe, actually, which I know you like Big Bear.
Oh, yeah, shit, that month's broken. Okay, but he's not a little fella.
I didn't even know. Speaking of Big Bear, next pick is going to be Ursaluna. Yeah, Mama Bear. Keegan, let me just count them out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Pokemon that do not resist Fairy. Ursaluna's not going to help with that. Ursaluna is a broken Pokemon at this point in the draft. Obviously, it's insane to get a Pokemon like this late. Obviously, it's probably the best normal type in draft. It's a very good Pokemon. Oh, maybe Ursaluna Blood Moon. I don't know. I still don't have an opinion on it. Ursaluna is cool. Not having a Fairy resist is not. Down with Keegan. That is my message for everybody today. Exclamation point Flygon. Check him out, by the way.
Exclamation point Flygon. Next up we have Florges here from gives him a more offensive fairy in Volcanion. So I like this aspect of it. There's a lot of things on his team that appreciate the Wish and the Wish pass out into. So that's going to be a really solid aspect, as well as like there's those matches where you go Calm Mind Florges and really kind of do a team dirty, especially with how well his team deals with steel types in general. They might not want to come, which means that you can run that Terra, or not that Terra, that Calm Mind, Moonblast, Wish Protect, or Synth plus Force move pretty darn freely. So definitely really solid.
Yeah, Florges is a great Pokemon, and obviously Wish with Volcanion specifically is going to be really, really nice, as well as Mamoswine. Next up, Brody is going to take Talonflame, who I actually really like on Brody's team. It gives him another ground resist, it gives him a good speed tier, and it gives him a good way to break steals. I think Talonflame fits a lot of niche roles, and it's just typically a good glue Pokemon. And it also retained Defog, so it is a form of removal that Brody up to this point did not have. He still does not have any form of hazards currently, unfortunately, unless Hisuian Gujo does not have rocks, correct?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, so he still doesn't have any form of hazards, but having at least one form of defog to alleviate that kind of pressure, and maybe not have to run Boost Thunderous every single week is going to be very, very nice. Talonflame, like I said, it's just a good glue piece. And originally it was a different Pokemon, but in the trade to Dell, he traded it away and received this Pokemon in return. They were very similar roles, so I'm curious to see. Do you want to talk about Star's pick? We can just sit here for 45 seconds if you want to.
We could. Mom said, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say nothing at all.
All right, we'll just sit here. We'll just sit here then.
Chat, what do you guys think about 4-point Grottle?
I mean, you got Shell Smash.
He does get Shell Smash. Any 4-point Grottle believers? No. Axolotl Archive likes Turtle. How about specifically when he costs 4 of your points?
I think he was a good Terra option, I'll be honest, but of course Star did not Terra him. How about we move on to the next pick? Urshifu-Fishy by JV. Tell us about it.
There are two wolves in me. One of them dressed.
Wait, you cut out. What did you say?
There are 2 wolves in me. One dressed Grottle and one dressed Urshifu. I mean, Urshifu's great. It is very interesting to see Lucario plus Urshifu, but I think it was honestly, if I'm thinking from JV's perspective, he had a shit ton of points left because he drafted a lot of mid-tier Pokemon. Urshifu-Rapid is incredible with Pult. Yeah. And he can use this in much more of a breaking role and use Lucario as that win set up E-Speed win potential, and Urshifu is going to function as that breaker, as that momentum grabber, and fits really well with Pult, and he probably just had the points to do it. So I actually really like the double fighting here. I know it looks weird to see Urshifu and Lucario on the same team, but I actually think it works really well. Yeah, I think it works really, really well.
Terra Torterra is banned. We banned most Pokemon that get access to something like Shell Smash, because that is kind of overwhelming compared to the rest of the board that we allowed. But the next Pokemon is going to be Salamence for Ant. It gives him another ice weakness. Cool guy, Ant.
He has 3 immunity, or 3.
It doesn't matter. I've decided it doesn't matter.
I don't care.
Gives him a ground immunity, which is really cool. And I think the big thing that this gives Ant that I actually really like is it gives him a late game win con, which is very important. Like he has setup options with like Monkey Dory, King Gambit, and Rillaboom, and this just stacks on that. So I do like that pairing a little bit. Next up, we're gonna see the thing that Dell traded for Talonflame, or Brody traded for Talonflame, excuse me. Kilowattrel.
It's gonna be Tell's Terra Captain too. He has Water Electric. Solid. I don't know how I don't know how I feel about the pure electric typing in general in a format where ground types are a requirement. And ground types are typically going to be the check to this thing, especially when we're doing Terra Preview and you have to if I know guess what I'm going into on Kilowattrel, you know? So I'm not the biggest fan of the electric on that. I probably still would have gone ice. There are some redundancies within water and ice, and I think water is a little bit better than ice in a lot of matchups. But what if there's that dragon that you can't break through, or that dragon that needs to take 4 times damage from ice? It might just be better in a lot of instances, whereas I don't see electric ever coming. But in general, very solid Pokemon. Gives him another solid speed tier in between Chien-Pao and Iron Moth, which is going to be very solid. Grabs momentum, is not the strongest in the world, but isn't easily switched into. And it's an electric immunity, which is nice for Treads to take off a little bit of pressure.
Yeah, and next up, Killa is also going to choose his Terra Captain. We see Meloetta, who is going to be normal and fairy. Meloetta is a cool Pokemon. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I do think it is definitely a good Terra Captain, especially with the fairy Terra typing, which allows you to obviously do stuff on dark types. I would like to see fighting as well, I think, but I think normal is definitely interesting to take advantage of the fact that there's not that many great normal resists in this dex, paired with the fact that steel types are very far and few between. But that's why I think I would have liked fighting in the other slot a little bit better. I don't know. I like the defensive fairy option still. I like Meloetta. I think it's a cool pickup, and I'm excited to see how Killa uses it. As far as this round as a whole goes, let's just cut it out right now. We all know Grottle was the best pick of this round.
I threw my toothpick at my screen when you said that.
Obviously, Ursaluna and Annihilate going this late is crazy, but you guys have to remember that in a format like Draft League, you don't have unlimited points, so sometimes it just doesn't make sense to take those Pokemon because you won't be able to fill out every single role. So props to, and Urshifu-Rapid, so props to the people that got those this late. After finishing week 1 already, is Darkrai too good for the future of Draft? I don't know.
See next Saturday.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't know if I can say without spoiling the result of the battle, so
You will see next Saturday, my friend.
I'm not going to say. I think in concept, in my opinion, I think it's too... I think it's too
1 week is too short to say yes or no, in my opinion.
I think in concept,
even just 1 week is too short to say yes or no.
You guys going by the normal smoke on rules, so there isn't another Mephisto incident? Are you talking about? Is that Quick Claw? Is that
like when you brought like 5 Mons and brought Fissure and all of them? Yes. That won't happen.
Yeah.
And if it pulls it, they'll probably get 4. But
yeah, they'll get forfeit for sure. If anybody tries to find any stupid loopholes in the rules, for instance, they'll get it was Ant.
No, Ant also does it too. Yeah.
Dude, it was
Dell
Ant.
tried to trade his whole time in BBR.
Oh yeah. You're right. Okay. All right. Moving on to round 9, we do have one person who is going to finish their draft this round. I'm so excited to talk about it. Let's go ahead and start. The first pick is going to be Piloswine. I actually really like Piloswine as a low tier pick. It's a very bulky Pokemon. People really sleep on it. Stealth Rock. It still has access to knockoff, I do believe. Does it?
Yeah, I think so.
Has access to, it does not have access to knockoff, but has priority in Ice Shard, and Ground plus Ice is almost unresisted. It's still a very good Pokemon, very bulky, and I'm excited to see what Killa does with it, because he definitely did value another ground type in my opinion, because he was very weak to electric up to this point. It was just Toedscruel. It's something like Kilowattrel literally ran this team over, so getting Piloswine I think alleviates that, so I like that a lot. What'd you say?
Yeah, it's also deceptively strong too. I think people like see the attacks but then realize that attacks aren't resisted and are really heavy.
Yeah.
Okay, next up we have, is it Mr. Dellington?
It is the Pokemon that I planned on for the whole draft.
He's got, I messed up, okay? My mouse is dead. I'm kind of not wanting to turn it back on until I have to. We have Haxorus for Dell, which I actually really like for this team. Not because it fits anything like role conventionally wise, but I think Dell covered a lot of things he needed to really well. He has 2 fighting resist, or 3 fighting resist, 4 actually. Wow. So I don't think he really needed to dip back into there. He kind of covered Pal perfectly. What Haxorus gives him is a Pokemon that wins at the end of the game. It has that, it's that setup sweeper. You can do it with Moth with agility, and Pao sometimes will run SD. I'm not a big SD Pao guy, hot take. I think it's much better just killing things. But Haxorus is going to set up DDs or Swords Dances and Scale Shot, or just, you know, DD through teams and just win the game. And I think that's a really cool aspect of his team. He hasn't got one of those yet, so really cool.
Next up, this just in. Crazy guy decides that he's now Hawlucha guy and decides to overrate Hawlucha, and it's now his Terra captain. We have Terra Flying and Terra Ground Hawlucha. It paired with Rillaboom is definitely cool. I think there were better Terra captain options, and Antonio got flamed a little bit for this pick because he was talking about how it was the best captain. I think he is on one. I don't think it's the best Terra captain. I think it's definitely good. I think the value next to Rillaboom is awesome. I think that it is a Terra captain is going to be pretty interesting, but I don't know. We'll see how it pans out. Next up, JV is going to take Urshifu.
Big Bear. Now, when I was yelling about Little Fella, because I like him, I didn't know that Urshifu was there. It is also a little bit underpriced in my opinion. I think Urshifu is like a 7-point Pokemon, 7 to 8-point Pokemon. This thing is incredible. This generation, it is so incredible with an Eviolite and Guts and resting and still getting that, you know, boost on its Guts and things like that. This thing is incredibly strong and incredibly bulky. I think this is a great pickup from Jay because of the fact that his Ghost Resist was something like Zarude that doesn't typically always want to take those hits on. His team was very Ghost weak at this point, so I like the Urshifu pickup a ton. This is a very good pickup.
Boys, next up, Starfish, exclamation point University ended up picking Slugma, the 18-point behemoth, and rounding out his draft with a fire type and a rocker that he didn't already have. Everybody knows Slugma is 18 points for a number of different reasons. How powerful this Pokemon is absurd, and the fact that we even allowed it's not typically allowed in draft leagues. The fact that we allowed Slugma is baffling, but Star is going to take it here. It's absurd that this Pokemon made it to round 9. It adds so many nice roles to Star's team. He's got a rocker now, he's got a fire type, he's got a Slugma. Slugma is broken Trick Room Sweeper Slugma. Everybody give Star a round of applause because he just picked the best Pokemon in the draft. And then Brody takes Quagsire.
How fitting. Now, something I will say, this gives Brody something that in hazards. It gives him rocks and spikes, which is very valuable. It also gives him a bulky water, which is tearing his Hisui and Guja. So that's nice. It gives him a ground type. As much as I'm a big Quagsire hater, I don't like it. I think it's a recover bot. It fits this team very well, and it gives him so many things that he does not have. It gives him so many things that he does not have. So I think it's a very solid pickup for Brody.
I'm sorry that you had to talk about Quagsire after I talked about the GOAT Slugma. That's not really fair.
Does Slugma get drought?
Doesn't matter. Zoroark's up next. Zoroark's up next, and I am a Zoroark hater, kind of. I'll be honest. I think Zoroark's kind of doo-doo. This Pokemon's not very good, but it gives him a Dark type. Gives him a speed tier in 105 because Zapdos isn't necessarily going to be respected at 100. And making Zoroark disguised as Sneasler could be kind of cool, but it's the same thing as Urshifu earlier, where once hazards go up, obviously Sneasler resists rocks, and then Zoroark does not resist rocks, and there's not a lot of other Pokemon that really benefit from getting disguised as Zoroark on this team, so it gives momentum. I think it's a Pokemon that's not going to come a whole lot, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see how Q pairs this with the rest of his team. Did anyone choose Slugma and JJDL? It went completely undrafted. Next up, Keegan's going to take another non-fairy resist in Houndstone.
Houndstone does give him the, a solid defensive ghost. Very solid. I like this thing a lot defensively, in all honesty. Yeah. Very solid. Keep in mind, before anybody goes, how is it an 8 points? It's an Uber Pokemon. Last Respects is banned. Not even necessarily broken, but I think we banned Last Respects for consistency because it's broken on Basket Legion. But it did get Poltergeist, so it now has reliable, strong Ghost Stab, which is really, really awesome for this Pokemon, giving it consistent damage output outside of Nightshade and Shadow Sneak, and I guess Phantom Force if you're, feeling extra crazy. But the physically defensive, prowess on Fluffy Houndstone is honestly pretty insane. Very, very good Pokemon. Spread status, and it's just a big, big nuisance. So yeah, I actually like this mod a lot. Doesn't resist fairy though. You are right. I am noticing a severe lack of fairy, Mr. Keegan.
Next up, Nate is going to end up taking Mienshao. Mienshao is really cool. It's still like cluttered speed tiers are the big problem with Nate's team, but I think that's really the only massive problem. Mienshao is a good Pokemon, regenerator, best ability in the game. It has U-turn, it has knockoff. Obviously, it kept close combat, I do believe. So Mienshao is still the Mienshao that we all know and love. Very powerful, and it's a good momentum Pokemon in this team. Again, it's another physical mon, so maybe look at another special breaker potentially before this draft ends. But overall, I don't dislike Mienshao on this team by any means. I think it's a very, very solid pickup. And then next up, Obo is going to take Hoopa Unbound. Big Hoopy.
Oh, Boski. So I like this pick a lot. I think it's another solid breaker. Well, I like the Pokemon. It's a bit redundant in the roles that it offers. He has an offensive psychic. There is always like that kind of overload principle, and this the web aspect of his team, which up to this point in his team, like, no, he has Chi-Yu, so his team liked the webs anyways. But it's another Pokemon that doesn't enjoy it. Honestly, a little bit more versatile than people give it credit for. You typically think of it in like Life Orb sets, Choice Band sets, but Specs, AV especially, I love AV Hoopa, which is really solid. So nice, strong Pokemon, and he's kind of filled out a lot of the roles that you typically need on a draft league team anyways. Now, the Pokemon that filled them out, I think may have been a little bit short-sighted, but he has technically filled all of those roles. So getting a Pokemon like Hoopa is definitely, a good pickup.
Yeah. Let's go, baby. Border Night Shaders again. Woo. We're gonna get Sinistra, the T guy. We're gonna get Teabag, and he's cool because he's gonna make you click on my thumbnails, and that's the reason that I picked him. And also to be another water resist outside of Rotom Wash. But it's mainly for the thumbnails. Be sure to click on any thumbnail that has this guy on it. I can't really say his name, but I like him, and he is a cool guy. And that is my expert analysis from a professional Pokemon player.
Next up, we have the okay, there's two sides to this coin. He got a ground type, which he desperately needed, and rocks and spikes. Yes. Part 2, it's a Sand Slash.
Let's go!
Which isn't the most reliable ground type, which I really do think loved good ground type. Sand Slash is good low point value. It is. But I think more so on a team that doesn't need a good ground, and this team needs a good ground. So we'll see. It does get spin, spikes, and rocks, which is very valuable. Especially for its price point. It's decently bulky in a lot of instances too, so definitely not the worst pick in the world. I wish there was a better ground that we could have gone for, but again, you pick and you choose. It's draft league. Sometimes you get left behind with some of them.
Next up, we're gonna get Big Man. I need some Big Mans in the chat right now. Big Man is gonna go to the Wakes, and we are to Danny, not Nate. And Big Man has Swift Swim, so it's actually a very good fit on this team. It's a rain sweeper that does not have the water typing, so it's pretty cool. I'd be interested to see if Danny actually changes this to be his Terra Captain, because I think Overquill is a very good Terra Captain. It also gives him more hazards, which is very good. And obviously, Overquill is actually really good offensively. People sleep on this thing's offenses. I think it has base 115, and it has the move Barb Barrage, which is extremely slept on. I think it's an extremely good move. And Overquill offers a lot to teams, and this team specifically, I think it gives a lot of versatility too. And next up, we see Abomasnow actually go from Owen.
Yeah, I like this pick a lot. So one of the reasons I picked Guja last round was when I was putting my team in like the little ball hawk dock, and I was like, I really like my... I noticed I was really weak to opposing water, so it was one of the typings I did not cover well. So Guja helps out with that, and so does Abomasnow. Abomasnow also gives me another ground resist, which my team only really had Bronzong Thunders for, which isn't very reliable by any means. It has the snow buff with its defense, getting boosted in the snow, which is great. It also gives me Aurora Veil for things like Volcarona, Thundurus, bulk up Crocodile, and bulk up Okidogi. The Veil option is really nice, as well as giving my Iron Bundle Blizzard options to where I can just click Blizzard and do a lot more damage, which I think is really cool. I think this is actually a really solid pickup for my team. This is one of my favorite picks of the draft because it's a lower point, but it's very good.
Yeah, no, I'm a big Abomasnow guy. Next up, we're going to have another Pokemon that I wish Lars Terra'd this instead of Mesprit. I think this is a really good Terra Captain, and I really was hoping that somebody would try to take advantage of it. It's going to be Yanmega. Yanmega's a really cool Pokemon with tinted lens. And oh my gosh, with Terra, nothing would switch into this Pokemon. But as is, it's still a very good special breaker, which Lars did not have that many of up to this point. And it's a really good Pokemon. I do want everybody, I want to keep it in mind, Lars has 17 points left with 2 rounds remaining, and I think that is by far the most points left out of anybody left. Lastly, in this round, Amel is going to take Arboliva.
Big Arboliva. Now, something this gives Amel, which is, I think that weirdly enough, his team really loves that grassy terrain recovery up to this point. His ground doesn't care about Pokemon like Infernape, like Earthquake being weakened. Same thing with Slowbro, and a lot of his Pokemon like Mew and Ursaluna and Slowbro and Samurott, we all really appreciate the grassy terrain recovery. So as weird of a pick as Arboliva is, I think it actually fits this team really, really well. It also gives him a Ghost immunity outside of Ursaluna, so double normal is never a bad thing, especially when you have really good fighting resist in both Mew, Slowbro, and then 2 immunities and double Ghost. So like his team covers Ursaluna's weaknesses really well too, which we haven't really mentioned. So really, really solid pickup here from Amel. If you need a ground resist and there's not a lot left, Arboliva is a really good pick for this team.
Yeah, I like this a lot. I want everybody to be aware that there are, at this point, a lot of draft analysis are going to go live. They were all set for 6 p.m. We have 2 rounds left. They should be fairly quick. We would appreciate if you guys would stay with us for these last couple rounds, because not everybody even has a pick in these rounds. But if you want to go just check out some of the draft analysis of our coaches, be sure to check them all out in the description below. And we're going to try our best to finish this draft analysis out strong. So out of that round, I really liked the Slugma pick. I think it's really tough to beat that.
Yeah,
that's it.
Like
moving on. You don't
Okay.
really have a say. We're just gonna go ahead and
We're pushing it. I know.
we're gonna go into round 10. Okay, Amel's picking Lycanroc. I like this pick a lot because I think his speed tiers up to this point were really clunky, and that was one of the weird weaknesses of this team, because it looks like just a bunch of Pokemon thrown together, but it really works, especially top 4 Pokemon, and now a Pokemon above base 110 speed tier. I really like the Lycanroc pairing a whole lot with his team. It gives him momentum, as well as it gives him more priority on top of Infernape and another physical breaker, which I think is really nice. Again, I would like to see another special breaker, but at this point in the draft, you can't be too picky with what you get, and Lycanroc fills what he needed the most, which was another speed tier and also another rocker, of course, because Ursaluna does not get stealth rocks, I think.
It doesn't. So his only rockers right now are Mew and Infernape, which is not good. So this thing being
a fan favorite pick up next. Lars is gonna take Mr. Man the Landorus.
Mr. Man the Landorus. Good old Mr. Man here. Honestly, again, he really, in my opinion, these last 3 rounds, his draft went from, oh no, this team looks very mediocre, to, okay, this looks good. I mean, if you just take that Landorus, you put it at the top of the draft, it looks like any other draft. So he was able to really secure the middle tiers that he wanted, and he was able to get the Landorus to follow to him. Now, whether they call that luck or skill or a combo of both, it happened, and his team is very solid. I love this breaker on his team with all of the spikes and rocks and all the hazards and momentum that this squad has. Landorus is going to be very, very strong. Big, can we get Linuts in the chat? Thank God Noah just pulled up and just dropped a Linut. Any Linuts in the chat?
Let's not do that. Let's get some Lenards. Next up, Owen's going to take what I think his team was missing with a Wish Passer. I think that this kind of completes Owen's team. I don't really think there's any other roles that Owen super needs to fill. I think Alomomola being the lone... being the secondary water type. No, I think this fits very well in Owen's team. It also got access to knockoff and flip turn again. So Alomomola lovers,
not knockoff, Scald,
not knockoff, because nothing gets knockoff, and Alomomola sucks. It got Scald. I'm sorry. Alomomola still sucks, and I think it fits well on your team. That's what. Stop saying Lanut in the chat. Don't say Lanut. Lanad. Yeah, let's get some Lanads. All right, Danny picked Furret.
Danny did pick Furret. I mean, he's a cute little fella, you know. That's pretty sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he got tidy up, and that's really what it's here for. Now, as a 1-1, so big shoutouts there, especially if you have 11-point Terramon. Like, why not grab it? Again, gives him good removal. His team has really shitty removal. It's just Scizor. And a team like this doesn't always want to, take the time to defog, whereas Furret can at least offensively pressure when you're tidying up. And it's also a Pokemon that if he plays Goldango, he can tidy up and remove hazards, which is, I think, a really in like that one matchup, and your 1-pointer is going to be fish anyways, so
yeah. And having both Terra Normal and Terra Ghost is really cool on that. Next up, we're gonna have Muck, but for some reason the home sprite doesn't have any lines on it, so it just looks very ugly. the ugliest Pokemon I think I've ever laid eyes on. KJ gets a poison type. Keegan is in shambles right now because the last fairy resist that was on the draft board just went, so he has lost all opportunity to get any Pokemon that has any resemblance of resisting fairy, unless he wants to pick, I don't know, Tinkatuff, I guess, is still there. So yay, Muck. At this point, these draft picks are really just us pretending like they're good.
No, hold on. Muck got knockoff.
Let's go!
He didn't have that before. I'm just saying.
That's stupid that he didn't have it. Let's go, Muck. Woo. Next up, I pick Oricorio.
Honestly, okay, so John was shitting on his own pick, but I think this Pokemon's really... Again, how much value are you getting out of Pokemon below 6 points anyways? Or he has the option to be all 4 different types, and there's the random matchup where Ghost does really good because your opponent doesn't have a Ghost resist, or you need to spin block really bad despite not having spikes. Where are your spikes, Jonathan Jr.?
I know, it's weird me not having spikes.
Or even the electric one. It has a great defensive typing, and they can all set up and win the game with Quiver Dance. I think they're actually really, really good value mons for low points. Even if they don't specifically fit a team perfectly, they're still very solid, you know, just matchup fishy mons, like where you're just looking like, holy shit, this thing wins. I also saw Amel beat an Iron Treads with an electric Oricorio, not because he had coverage, but because he used Charm.
Yeah, Amel's kind of crazy like that. Next up, we're going to see Komala. Komala's a spinner and a normal type. And Owen had 2 points left. So he decided that those 2 points were well spent on Komala. And I don't disagree.
No, I think it's actually fine. He doesn't have a ghost immunity, so it gives him one.
Yeah,
His team gives...
I like it on the team, but it's still a Komala. It's not the worst Pokemon taken, though, which is crazy.
Oricorio was Terra Band, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Oricorio, almost anything that has Quiver or Shell Smash was Terra Band, yeah. Except like Grottle and Vivian and Masquerain, maybe.
Yeah.
Hoopa!
Big, or not big Hoopa, baby Hoopa, which I actually think Terra. It's a little bit slow, so that's something that kind of has to be remedied with it, but the ability to change into a fairy type and get fairy coverage, which it lacks, or even just get strong ghost stab moves is really, really valuable. It's a really strong Pokemon. It just really struggles to find the opportunities to get attacks off with that 4 times dark weakness especially, but when we can Terra and change our typing, we become that much better. I think Envy had this in PPL and he did really well with it. I think it's a really cool Terramon, so I actually like this pickup a lot for me. This is a cool one.
Yeah, but I think Terra Fairy is definitely the best type on it. I think it makes the most sense. It helps it beat Darks. It's a good defensive typing, and then Ghost is obviously just very strong. So I think he chose the 2 types for sure. Oh my gosh, Keegan out of left field getting a fairy resist. He's getting
saved.
He saved Swalot. We did it, boys. Keegan got Swalot. His team, this is pick of the round for sure. Keegan now resist fairies. Keegan will now not lose to fairies. He doesn't lose to Valiant now. He doesn't lose to Clefable now. Certainly doesn't lose to Enamorus now. Swalot is the glue that holds Keegan's team together. I cannot believe that we have prayed for times like these for Keegan to choose Swalot as his fairy resist, as his token fairy resist, his only fairy resist on his team. He's here. Let's go. Everybody is rejoicing in the chat because now I can't sweep Keegan with Clefable. It just won't happen. Q chose Espeon.
Is the purple gooey mucky cummy glue to that team.
Don't say that.
He is. That's what he is. Is that not what he is?
No, stop. Espeon.
Yes, we said the same thing. Anyways, Espeon. It's actually, I like it a lot on this tier on this team. That 110 was completely lacking up to this point. So actually no, it isn't Zoroark. No, Zoroark's 105. So I think 110 is really solid. It's also a screen setter, which I think is really cool in a team with Spectrier and Sneasler team mons that really appreciate setup options, but it isn't like a screens dedicated mon. I wouldn't recommend you draft like a Grimmsnarl on a team like this, just because of the fact that your whole team isn't super setup oriented and it's a little bit fatter and more balance oriented. But there's that matchup where now we have a solid dual screener in the matchup where we want to go hyper offense and set up with our Sneasler and Screentail and win the game, which I think is really, really cool.
Colossal was on the board and Keegan took Swalot.
Swalot's the grounded poison, which means he is no longer weak to spikes, and that is a requirement. Fast.
I just wanted to sink in that a usable Pokemon. Did he have enough points? 5? He had enough points. My man purposefully chose Swalot over Colossal.
Oh, it's cool.
I'm a Swallow believer. That's my boy. We all know that's my boy. Brody takes Colossal. It actually fills a lot of roles for Brody. It's a spinner. It gives him spikes. It gives him rocks. It is a double fire type, but he does have decent enough water resist. I like it on Brody's team. Liked it better on Keegan's team. Next up, we're going to see Crest taken.
Cresselia, not my favorite Pokemon in the world. I think it's a Pokemon that, if it is not aptly respected, can really snowball over teams. Nuisance. But the taunt fodder that it is makes it a little bit meh, in my opinion. But it does have that win con potential. It can also Lunar Blessing or whatever, not the doubles one, but the singles one that it's always had.
Lunar Dance.
And, Healing Wish up something, which is, again, really clutch. Healing Wish is always a clutch aspect on a team. That's Pokemon like Lucario or Urshifu-Rapid that might want to set up and break for themselves to win later. Or even a Specs Dragapult that got low after taking a hit and some hazards. We can bring it back up to full.
Boys, the Binkster is here. Big Carbink. Big Carbink rock fairy type. It has spikes this gym. It has stealth rock. It has body press. It's actually a good screen setter. I won't lie. 50 base HP, but 150 both defenses. It's not a good Pokemon, but it definitely uses body press well. And it's actually not bad because it gets both spikes, stealth rocks. It's a fairy type. It's honestly really good low tier value. I really do think that it's pretty good low tier value. And the only downside, the only thing that I kind of have a gripe with about Carbink is that this is your fairy type. And that's it. That's the sentence. It's your fairy type.
Not too many in this generation. Do we have the next pick on?
Yes, we do.
I have to say it correctly. Was picked up next year from Mr. D Double. I don't know. He got sick. He saw it was on the board still, and he got Vietnam War flashbacks. Amels play rough, nuking his roaring mid in BBR 2 seasons ago, and he said it's not happening. I won't let it happen again. And he picked it up himself. So I think it's very important to realize that you're weak to Pokemon and drafting them so that you don't get picked off by them. So good pickup by Del.
Yeah, and he's Terra Fairy and fighting. Terra Fairy probably because of the whole Roaring Moon Lechonk incident. I would
fighting
assume.
For stab close combat.
Yeah, Del said fuck this Pokemon in the chat.
He drafted him just to put him in the corner and kick him every once in a while.
We see Killa take Electrode. Gotta get your fast electric, and Killa of course fills that very important role here. It's actually a good speed tier. I like Electrode. It's a good screen setter. It has taunt for some reason. I don't know if he just like smiles at you a little awkwardly and you get a little bit nervous, or like what the case is. He does have a nice row of teeth, so it would make sense. Good screen setter, Volt Switch momentum, helps break waters, which this team doesn't necessarily struggle with, but it can't hurt. It's a 2-point Pokemon. You're not really going to find much better than Electrode in 2 points. I'll be completely honest. So that is going to do it for round 10. I think the best pick this round had to be, honestly, I mean, Lando obviously is really good. I like Hoopa a lot on Nate's team, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I think Hoopa's a really cool pickup from him. What other guys do we have?
Oh, the Binkster.
Oh, the Binkster. Well, the Binkster's obviously up there, but I don't state the obvious.
Keegan's Swallow Fairy Resist, finally.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a big one. I think my Mr. Man one.
Yeah. Definitely a good pick. You can't go wrong with round 10 Landorus. I almost said Darkrai, imagine.
Round 10 Darkrai.
Why is Lechonk so big? I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Your man's a big presence.
I'm not sure really what you're talking about. We'll go ahead and move on to round 11. These Pokemon are rapid fire. We have very few Pokemon and they're going to be 30 seconds apiece. So we're going to go ahead and just jump in here. Killa is going to take Quaxwell. This is going to be Terra and it's going to be both, let me see, the water and grass type. This is a spinner. It's actually not a bad low tier spinner, and having it as defensive grass type, this is not a meme pick. This is actually very usable. Spinning's great.
Tony lost to one. It has Roost for longevity. It has flip turn now, I believe. I think it had U-turn anyway though, so whatever. It's usable. Not the best pick, but at this point these are 1-pointers and not very good Pokemon, so there's not much better you could do. You can't do worse than Ant's pick here. Ant's pick here. So Ant thought Slowpoke in past generations wasn't the because it could teleport and it could scald, and now Burns, it was solid defensively. It was a really slow pivot. It lost teleport. It also doesn't have scald, even though the slow twins when they're Yeah, Slowpoke doesn't have Scald, and Ant didn't know that until last week, and it was really funny when he realized it. It was a 1-point pick, and he thought it was a funny little guy. That's about it. We're not gonna pretend like the hidden value in Slowpoke.
Speaking of funny little guys, Amo's boy got taken right now. We have Ice Cube, who I am shocked Amo didn't take this as one of his Terra captains in this draft. I'll be completely honest. It blew me away.
Who knows? Maybe he was going to originally, and then Brody said last round, he said, no, I'm not losing to it. He took the Dell approach. He said, if you're on my team, and he drafted it. I want to see the gas that Brody comes up with whenever he decides to bring Ice Cube. I'm be very interested to see it happen.
Chile reception is cool. Next up, Q's going to take Torterra this late.
Yeah, really late Torterra, actually. But really cool pickup. And another one that appreciates the SP. It also gives him another rocker, a more defensive round if he needs it. But I feel like this guy is going to come off of the bench as that setup sweeper a lot of the time with Shell Smash. So I think that's going to be really cool to watch. I'm excited to see Torterra pop off.
Yeah. Next up, Keegan decided that Swallow as a lone fairy resist is plenty. Steel types not needed. He decided to pick Ampharos. Why? I couldn't tell you.
Flying
you look at his team.
Even have a flying resist.
You look at his team.
Okay.
He had Iron Hands as an electric breaker. He had Gyarados, which is Terra Electric, and he decided Ampharos was the choice in this last round. Oh my gosh! Wait, how is there a worse Pokemon than Ampharos on my screen right now?
Is it Ariados?
It's Ariados.
To be fair, for 1 point, I actually think this is like a top 5 1-pointer.
Oh, and it's Terra.
I also really, it's Terra Ghost too, so it can block spin. And I also love the webs aspect for this team. I love Palafin, Landorus, Ogerpon, Hydreigon, all on web, even Mienshao. Those Pokemon become immensely more threatening when they cannot be killed by anything faster, and you outspeed everything. So I really like this pickup for Nate. For 1 point, it was a good one. I think these last 2 rounds, he definitely filled up some much needed holes in the team.
Yeah, and next up we have a real Pokemon taken. KJ getting that Steel type breaker. We're gonna see Armarouge. I really like Armarouge on this team specifically because of that role that it fills to break steals. Unfortunately, your steel breakers are only Breloom and Armarouge, and I guess Sandslash, so you're probably gonna be bringing Armarouge more than you would actually like to, but it's not a bad Pokemon by any means. And then next up, Danny fell into the trap of picking a Spathra.
Non-Terra Espathra.
Non-Terra Espathra.
Now, to be fair, it's not the worst Pokemon in the world. Again, a Snowball Mon, and definitely like a new killer type Mon too, and that can definitely to your advantage. You miss position, don't respect it in the builder, it will win the game. So it forces a lot of prep. I'm not the biggest fan of non-Terra Espathra. I think it's very, very mediocre in that regards. But again, if you got 13 points at the end of the draft and there's nothing better at the top, why not take it?
Yeah, this Mon does suck, Clyde. It does. Don't be fooled. Miss Mag is going to go here for Owen. I like Miss Mag. It's a spin blocker. It's a base 105 speed tier, which is a speed tier that he did not have. Miss Mag is just a good low tier ghost, and it helps fill, and it's a levitate user as well. It fills that last role that maybe Owen needed. He didn't really need anything left, and Miss Mag fills the few things that he really didn't already have to make this hot mess of a team usable.
Oh. I only needed one thing, maybe.
And it was what you cut off?
Lastly, we have big Dragonair, Terra Dragonair. Amo thought, you know what? I used Terra Dragonair once, and that was too easy. Let's step it up a little bit. We got Terra Dragonair here. It's a 1-point mod with an Eviolite. It's actually bulky, and it can like Thunder Wave and Dragon Tail things. I've seen like Eviolite Dragon okay in like low tier leagues. So I mean, low tier Terra. You know, I could maybe do the same thing. He's probably not going to bring it very often, but he's a cool little guy. So
he's a cool little guy. So with that, that is going to do it for our draft. We have some really awesome teams, and right now we do have some draft analysis going up from every single coach you can check out down in the description below. While you're down there, please go ahead and first of all, make sure you're subscribed. It's absolutely free, and we're almost to 2,000, but also join the GBU Discord server so you can get notified when we're doing watch-along streams, when we're doing pick'ems, when your favorite coaches upload videos. There's no reason not to join. Come support your favorite coaches. Come get the Portland Nightshaders role so I once again get my ego filled up as the most people like me and I click my funny little button, go ahead, go view all these awesome coaches draft analysis. I know I'm looking forward to watching all of them right now. Do you have any parting words, Owen?
No, it was fun. I'm tired, but that was a good time.
I'm also tired. Thank you guys so much for coming out. Really appreciate it. Appreciate all the comments, all the memberships, everybody being super consistent here. I think we concurrent 50 viewers, which is insane. Thank you guys so much for coming out to this draft stream. And for now, guys, this has been John Jr. signing off.